Gerenciar uma frota é uma tarefa para poucos, e você sabe disso. Como gestor de frotas, você precisa de informações seguras e estratégicas, aliadas à tecnologia de ponta. E disso, a Trimble e eu sabemos. Muito prazer, eu sou a Tassi, assistente virtual da Trimble. Fui criada para estar ao seu lado. No mundo tecnológico e digital, nada melhor que uma assistente tecnológica e virtual. Hoje, já conseguimos conversar do jeito que você já faz com seus amigos reais. Mas eu vou além. Vivo aprendendo para transformar o modo como o mundo trabalha. Enquanto você é o protagonista, eu fico nos bastidores dando apoio, fazendo o possível para ajudar a frota a rodar segura, econômica e ágil. Muito prazer, eu sou a Tassi. Vamos juntos?
Good morning, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, we are welcoming you In.Coming 2021. Good morning, Tassi. Nice to meet you. My name is Rafael, and I'm going to be with you this morning. That is a very incredible morning, ladies and gentlemen. So this event is being broadcasted in 3 channels. We have the original audio in Portuguese and in English. You have an audio just in Portuguese and with the translation in English. You can check out the link in your emails, in confirmation email, and also in the chat of the event. And I really would like to bring a special message before we get started. It's worth highlighting that all procedure related to coronavirus is being respected. Ladies and gentlemen, Trimble is very much worried about the details regarding coronavirus, so we cannot relax regarding that. So most collaborators from Trimble, so they work from their home office. So I think it's going to be, are you ready for our event? So this event is a promising one. It's going to be awesome. And before that, I really would like to bring a presentation from Trimble. So it was born in Silicon Valley 42 years ago. And it's present in 150 countries with 11,000 employees dedicated to innovation and technology in different sectors. This passion that drives Trimble continuously transforming the way the world works. Life is always moving forward, and Trimble is constantly evolving, developing technologies that sustain our present and enable the future. Now, let's see a video to check this out, how it works in practice.
Our job is our life's work. Work that is concentrated in helping you and enabling our customers to do their life's work better. From transporting supplies, to planting and harvesting crops, mapping the world around us, managing water and natural resources, building and maintaining infrastructure. Trimble fuels a better way to work, connecting the data you need to the tools that get it done and get it done right. We are proud of being a part of the bigger picture by supporting our customers and playing a part in the ecosystem that is the world's livelihood. Helping you to bring, build, construct, create, and grow the essentials we need to live every day and build future communities. Life is always moving forward, and so is Trimble, working to help you work better. Trimble, transforming the way the world works.
Que demais tudo isso,
What an
senhoras e
awesome
senhores. Mais uma vez,
information, ladies and
seja
gentlemen. Once
bem-vindo
more,
a esse
welcome
evento
to this
incrível,
incredible
preparado
event,
com muito carinho para
prepared
todos
with
vocês.
a
Você
lot
pode
of
ter certeza
care
disso.
just for you.
A
Just
Trimble,
make sure
ela
that
está
Trimble
atenta ao futuro.
has an eye
No
in its
transporte, as
future. In
tecnologias
transportation, the
desenvolvidas
technologies
ajudam a salvar
developed help
vidas
save
no
lives
trânsito
in
e
traffic
possibilitam
and
a
enable
mobilidade
sustainable
sustentável.
mobility.
Se você quer
If you
saber
want to
mais sobre
learn
as
more
soluções
about
que
the
a Trimble
solutions Trimble
desenvolve para
develops
o
for
transporte, pode
transportation,
acompanhar
you can
também
follow
as nossas
the
redes
social
sociais.
media.
Olha só, não tem como
So
deixar
let's check
mais
this
claro.
out. So
A
it's not,
Trimble, ela é apaixonada por inovações.
Trimble is
A
passionate about
consequência natural
innovation.
desta
So the
paixão é tornar o
consequence, the
futuro
natural
algo
consequence
próximo.
of this passion
É
is to
dessa
bring the
essência que
future
nasceu
closer.
esse
It is from
momento,
this
o
essence that this
In.Coming.
moment was born.
É a
In.Coming is
materialização
the
da
materialization
importância
of
do
the
futuro,
importance of
das
the future,
tendências, da
trends,
inovação para a
innovation
Trimble.
for Trimble.
Queremos apresentar
We want to
nossos
present our
lançamentos,
launches,
o caminho que
the
iremos
path
trilhar
we
para
will
construir o
follow
futuro.
to build the
Para
future.
moldar o futuro,
To shape the
precisamos
future, we need to
construí-lo
build
hoje.
it today.
Os debates que
The
trazemos
discussions
aqui
we
têm a
bring
intenção
here are
de
intended to
contagiar vocês
inspire
quanto ao
you
pensamento
with
futurista
futuristic
e abraçar as
thinking and
mudanças.
embrace change.
Para mediar essa
To mediate this
construção,
construction,
contaremos com
we
a
will count
participação
on the
de
participation
grandes
of great
nomes
names,
como
such as
Clóvis
Clóvis
de
de Barros Filho,
doutor
who
e
is a
livre docente
PhD and
pela
lecturer
Escola
at
de
the School of
Comunicações e
Communication and
da
Arts at
também é
USP.
palestrante
He's
há
also
mais
been
de
a speaker
10
for
anos
over
no
10
mundo
years in the
corporativo,
corporate world,
consultor
a
e autor.
consultant
Vai estar
and an
demais a
author. It's
apresentação
going to be
dele.
awesome.
Peter
Peter
Crumpton, que é
Crumpton,
head do
who is the head of Copenhagen
Institute
Institute for Future
Latin
Studies in Latin
America.
America.
Evan McLachlan, que é
McLachlan,
Sector Vice
who is the
President da
Sector Vice
Trimble
President of
Mobility.
Trimble
Tem
Mobility. She
experiência
has
como
experience
diretora,
as director,
estrategista e
strategist,
desenvolvimento
and
de
business
negócios.
development.
E também vamos receber
And
o
also James
Langley, que é
Langley, who is the Senior Vice President at Trimble,
especialista
specialized
em
in business intelligence, transportation, and
executive
executive management.
Caminhamos para futuro
We're moving towards a
hiperconectado,
hyper-connected
senhoras e senhores,
future
com soluções
with
de alcance
solutions of
global,
global reach,
porém sem
but
deixar de
still
atender às
meeting
necessidades
local
locais.
needs.
Soluções
Solutions
que
that
atendam
serve each
cada
country
país e
and
conectadas
connected
com o
to the
futuro
future
que desejamos
we want to
construir, é
build.
claro.
A
Futuro sem
future without
acidentes.
accidents.
Em qualquer
And
estrada ao
of
redor
any
do mundo,
road
acidentes
around the
podem ser
world,
evitados.
accidents can be
Famílias
avoided.
podem
Families
ver pessoas
can see
amadas
loved
entrarem
ones
pela
walk
porta.
through the doors.
Mães podem
Mothers
encontrar
can
seus
find their
filhos.
children.
Amigos podem
Friends
compartilhar
can share
momentos,
moments,
criar
create
lembranças.
memories.
Acidentes
Accidents
encerram
end
histórias,
stories,
abreviam
shorten
caminhos,
paths,
terminam
end
sentenças.
sentences.
Constantemente
We're
somos
constantly
expostos a números
exposed
que
to numbers that
representam a
represent the
quantidade
number
de
of
acidentes.
accidents.
Os números
The
nunca
number will
conseguirão
never be
representar
able
as
to
vidas
represent
interrompidas,
interrupted
as famílias
lives,
separadas,
shattered
os sonhos não
families,
alcançados.
unfulfilled
A
dreams.
estatística nunca
Statistics
vai
will
conseguir
never
expressar o
express the
valor de
value
uma
of
vida.
life.
Os números
Numbers
são
are
uma
cold
representação
representation of
fria
the
da dor de
pain
muitos.
of many.
As
The
consequências dos
consequences of
acidentes vão
accidents
além
go
dos
beyond the
motoristas.
drivers.
Perdemos alguém que
We lose
amamos,
someone we love,
familiar,
a family
amigo,
member, a
conhecido.
friend, an
Dirigimos pelas ruas
acquaintance.
com o celular,
We drive through the
cigarro,
streets
bebidas
with
na
a cell
mão,
phone,
nos
cigarette,
concentrando em
drinks
tudo
in our
menos na
hands, focusing on
responsabilidade
everything
que
but
temos
the
para com os
responsibility
outros
we have to other
motoristas,
drivers,
pedestres ou
pedestrians,
ciclistas.
and cyclists.
Acreditamos estar
We
acima
believe we
da
are above
probabilidade ou das
probabilities,
probabilidades,
above
acima das
consequences.
consequências. Nos
We get
acostumamos
used to
a
always
sempre chegar em casa
getting home,
e assim
and
parece
so
que
it
a
seems
vida
that
vai
life will
sempre
always
seguir.
go on.
A Trimble deseja construir
wants to
futuro
build a
onde o
future where
trânsito
traffic
é mais
is
seguro,
safer,
onde
where
vidas
lives
não
are
são
not taken
ceifadas nas estradas
on the
por
roads by
distrações,
distraction,
má direção,
bad driving,
sonolência, onde
drowsiness,
pessoas
where
de todo
people
mundo
all
possam
over the
chegar
world can arrive
seguros aos seus
safely to their
destinos.
destinations.
Por meio da inovação,
Through
da
innovation,
inteligência,
intelligence,
consequência dos
the
mais de
consequence of
42
more
anos de
than
atuação,
42
mais de
years of
1,5 milhão
operation,
de
more than
veículos
1.5
monitorados
million
ao redor
vehicles
do
monitored
globo,
around
que a
the
Trimble
globe. The
lança
Trimble
hoje,
today
globalmente,
launches
o V-Safe Plus.
globally.
E agora a gente vai conferir um vídeo
Now
para
we're going
entender
to check
pouco
this
mais
out to
sobre isso.
understand how
Solta
it
aí.
works.
O que é uma obra-prima?
So what is a masterpiece?
É a mais bela obra de um artista.
It's the
de uma
most
época,
beautiful
de um gênero.
work of an artist,
Uma
of an
obra-prima
era,
tem a
of a
capacidade de
genre. A
marcar uma
masterpiece has the
geração,
ability to mark a
mudar
generation,
rumos,
change
ditar
paths,
futuros.
dictate futures.
Uma história que eu quero te
There's a
contar
story I want to
e que
tell
tem a
you,
ver com
and it
tudo
has
isso.
to do with all of this.
Havia dois
There were two
motoristas,
drivers,
um num caminhão
one in a truck
e outro num
and the
carro.
other in a car.
Cada qual em seu
Each
caminho,
each
um de
one
cá,
in his own
outro de
way.
lá.
One here,
mas
there,
ambos com
but
o
both
mesmo
with the
destino,
same
suas
destination,
famílias.
their families.
No carro,
In
o
the
motorista
car, the
pensava em
driver
seus
was
filhos,
thinking about his
e no
children.
caminhão, o
And in the
motorista
truck, the driver
sonhava
was
com
dreaming
suas
of his
filhas.
daughters.
Um sonho que,
A
se
dream that
continuasse,
if it
acabaria em
continued would end
pesadelo.
in a nightmare.
Até que, de um
Then,
instante
all of
para
a
o outro,
sudden,
o V-Safe Plus da
Trimble
Trimble
V-Safe
o
Plus
acordou
woke
e
him
salvou
up
os
and
caminhos e
saved
destinos de
everyone's
todos.
roads and destinies.
Isso é um final
This is a
feliz que se
happy
repete em
ending that is
todas as
repeated
estradas
on
do
every
planeta,
road on the
através de
planet, by
empresas que
companies
usam
using
Trimble e
Trimble
transformam
and
o
changing
modo
the
como o
way
mundo
the world
funciona.
works.
Para as
For
pessoas que
people who
valorizam a
value
vida,
life,
unimos nossas
we have
melhores
brought
soluções
together our
globais
best global
e criamos
solutions
o
and created
V-Safe
V-Safe
Plus,
Plus,
a obra-prima da Trimble,
Trimble's
para um
masterpiece for
transporte mais
safer
seguro.
transportation.
Uma
A
tecnologia
unique technology
exclusiva,
designed
projetada
to
para
connect
conectar
the
os
physical
mundos
and
físico
virtual
e virtual,
worlds,
protegendo
protecting
vidas
lives
dentro e
on
fora
and
das
off the
pistas.
road.
Quem entende de
Changing
arte
who
reconhece uma
understands
obra-prima,
masterpiece recognize a
assim como
masterpiece.
quem entende de
So
logística
everybody that works
escolhe a
in
Trimble
logistics,
e
they
garante o
choose
final feliz
Trimble
em
that
todas as
guarantees a
viagens.
happy ending after each
Trimble,
trip.
transformando o
changing
modo
the
como o
way
mundo
the
trabalha.
world works.
Que demais tudo isso, senhoras
That's
e
very
senhores. É
interesting,
realmente um
ladies and
momento
gentlemen.
de
This is a very
informação
nice moment.
e também
It's a
um momento
moment
de
to share
emoção,
information
quando a
and
gente
a
sabe que
very
uma empresa está
exciting
preocupada
moment
com
when the company is
vidas.
worried with
E agora a
lives.
gente recebe aqui
Now
no
we
nosso
are going to
estúdio, nesse
welcome
evento
in our
ao
studio
vivo
with the
e
live
especial,
moment,
o diretor de
the
marketing e
director,
vendas
the
da
marketing
Trimble,
sales
Rony
director,
Neri.
Rony
Bom
Neri.
dia, Rony. Eu já vou
Good morning,
emendando aqui
Rony.
uma primeira
And I am going to
pergunta para
ask the
você
first
responder. A gente vai fazer
question
um
so that we are
bate-papo
going to
aqui
have a
ao
chat
longo
now
dessa nossa manhã, com
throughout our
perguntas,
morning with
com dúvidas que
questions
talvez os
and,
senhores tenham aí,
doubts that
e o
you
Rony
may
vai
have, and
trazer
Rony
muitas das
is going
respostas
to
para a
bring
gente
some of these
nessa
answers
manhã.
in
Rony,
this morning.
olha só, até
Rony,
deixei anotado aqui
so I
a
wrote
primeira
it down, the
pergunta
first
para eu não
question,
titubear.
so that I'm
Eu
not
queria
going to
saber
be
como que a
hesitant.
tecnologia
So I'd
da
like to know
Trimble
how
consegue
does Trimble
assegurar um
technology
final
ensure a
feliz
happy ending
às
to the
viagens
journeys
de
of
milhares
thousands
de
of
famílias
people
ao redor
around
do
the
mundo.
world.
Bom dia.
Good morning.
Bom dia, Rafael. Bom
Good
dia,
morning,
pessoal que está nos
Rafael. Good
acompanhando
morning,
online.
all those who are
Nessa
following
manhã de
us
segunda-feira,
online
uma manhã
this
tão
morning,
especial.
Monday morning.
Estou
So
muito feliz
special morning. I'm
de estar aqui
very
para conversar
happy
pouquinho
to be
sobre
here
inovação, sobre
to have a
tecnologia e
conversation
segurança.
about innovation, technology, and safety
puxando
with
sobre
you.
segurança,
And talking
para a
about
Trimble e para os nossos
safety for
clientes, a
Trimble and our
segurança é uma questão
customers,
essencial.
safety
Eu
is
acho que ela é o
essential.
pilar
It's
fundamental.
crucial. I
Se as
think it's
pessoas
one
saírem
of
de
our main
casa
pillars. So
no
if you
seu
leave
carro, no seu
home in
caminhão,
your
e ela
truck,
não
in your
tiver
car,
segurança de que vai
and
voltar
you
bem
don't
para sua
have
família,
safety
nada
that
faz
you're going to
sentido.
return to your
O
family,
transporte
nothing
não faz
makes
sentido, a
sense.
viagem não faz
Transport
mais
doesn't
sentido.
make sense. Your
Então, por
trip
isso que a
doesn't make
Trimble vem
sense.
trabalhando
So
já
that's
há
why
vários
Trimble
anos
has been
com
working
esse
over the last
objetivo de
years with
tornar
this
as
aim
estradas mais
in order to
seguras.
become
A gente
the
começou lá
world's
atrás
safer
com a parte
place.
de
So we are
sensores de
very
movimento do
worried about
veículo.
movement
Aqueles sensores, a
sensors,
famosa
those
telemetria que a
sensors,
gente
that
ouve falar.
telemetry that we
E ela
have heard
identifica
about,
alguns
and
eventos
that identifies
de
excessive speed, for
transporte, de movimentação,
example,
como, por exemplo, o excesso de
moving, for
velocidade,
example,
ou uma frenagem
braking,
súbita, uma curva
sudden
brusca, coisas que
acceleration,
nos indicam aquele
and that
motorista
will
que está dirigindo de
reduce
uma
or
forma
show
agressiva, de
the
uma forma
driver which
distraída.
is
São
driving
esses
more
motoristas
aggressively.
que
So
causam
these
a maioria dos
drivers that
acidentes.
will be causing
Então, nós
most of the
começamos
accidents.
com
So we
identificando esses
started working by
comportamentos e a
identifying
evolução da
these
tecnologia
behaviors
permitiu ir
and the
muito
way
além, como a
technology
gente viu
evolves.
agora no
It
vídeo
goes
do V-Safe
beyond, as we
Plus.
saw on the video,
Quando a gente
V-Safe
aplica
Plus.
a inteligência
So when you
artificial,
apply the
a gente
AI,
ganha
we gain
poder muito grande
I think we
de
gain a
análise
great
e tudo
power
mais.
of
Imagina,
analysis
vou
and
fazer
everything
um
else. So
paralelo.
how will you make an
Imagina que
analogy?
você tivesse
Imagine
uma caixa
that
com
you have a
50 milhões de
box with
parafusos, Rafael,
50
e você
million screws.
precisasse
So,
descobrir
and you
quais
need to
daqueles estão
find
enferrujados.
which one of
Ia
these
levar
is
tempo, né?
rusted. So it's
50
going to take a while,
milhões é a
right? So
quantidade de
50
informações que
million
uma
is the
frota de
amount of
100 veículos
information
gera
that a
todos os meses.
freight of
Você imagina
100
conseguir
vehicle
garimpar
has. So
isso
how can
sem
you
uma
know,
inteligência artificial,
mine
tentando
and
fazer
dig
isso
into this
através de meios
information
manuais.
without artificial
Então, a
intelligence
inteligência nos deu
doing
uma
this
escala, nos
manually? So
permitiu
artificial
aprofundar
intelligence
isso, nos permitiu,
enables
inclusive,
us
o
to make a
reconhecimento de
more
coisas que a gente
accurate
não tinha,
analysis
que era
and
praticamente
recognize things
impossível
that
se
we
você não tivesse um
couldn't do
supervisor
before.
ao lado do
So if you
motorista.
had a supervisor, for
Identificar a
example, next to your
sonolência,
driver,
identificar
so if you get
distração,
sleepy,
identificar o
if you
uso do
doze
celular,
off,
celular que até
because
pouco
of
tempo
mobile
atrás não
phones,
existia,
mobile
já
phones
responde
hasn't
por
from being here for long.
57% das
So
mortes dos acidentes causados por
57% of
motoristas
the
até 40 anos.
accidents are
Essa
up to
primeira faixa de
40 years. So that's
motoristas
the
das duas
first
décadas ali, de 20 a 40
number,
anos,
from
maior causa de
20 to
acidente é
40.
celulares.
So
Então,
most of the cause of
antigamente, você
accidents are
dependia do
deaths are mobile
0800, de
phones.
alguém ver a
Before
pessoa usando um celular para
you
avisar. Agora a gente
needed
já
a
consegue ver
0800
isso dentro do
number
veículo em
to
tempo
call
real.
and report a
Interessante.
person, but now we don't
Salvando
need it
vidas.
anymore.
Ó, tem mais uma
That's very
pergunta para
interesting.
você,
Saving
falando
lives.
agora
There's
de
another question when you talk about
logística, falando agora
logistics, when you
de como
talk
essa
about how this
logística ela
logistic
pode beneficiar
is
o
going to
consumidor
benefit
final.
the end
Com o lançamento
consumer with the launch
do VSafe
of
Plus,
VSafe
como que
Plus.
isso impacta
How
nessa
does
cadeia
this launch of
logística, Rony?
VSafe impact on the logistics?
Muito bom, Rafael. Eu vou
Very good question.
trazer para o nosso lado, para
I'll
pessoas,
bring
né?
it to
Todo mundo,
our
eu, você, todo
life
mundo que
of
está nos
teachers.
assistindo.
You, myself, and
A
everybody
gente
who is
acredita que quando
watching
a
us now.
estrada tem
We
menos
believe that
acidentes,
when
tem
there
menos
are
mortes,
less
tem menos
accidents and less
feridos
death
e tem menos
on the
custo na
roads,
operação,
there is
isso
less
impacta
cost. So
no
that
custo do
has an
frete.
impact on
Isso
the freight
impacta nas
cost.
pessoas que
This impact
perdem um
on
ente. Então, todo mundo aqui
people
que
who
pega a
will be
estrada, todo
losing a
mundo que
member
compra
of their
produto,
family,
tudo que
everybody who
chega até
buys
você
a
veio por
product hits the road, for
Então, quando a
example.
gente impacta
When
nisso,
we
a gente impacta
cause an
no
impact
custo de
on
todo
this,
mundo, a
we
gente impacta
impact
na
the
saúde da
cost on
sociedade inteira.
everything, on
Então, o benefício
society's
direto
health.
para
So the
gente
direct
é muito
benefits to
claro.
us is
É
very
reduzir
clear.
o preço das coisas
It's
que
to
a gente compra,
reduce
reduzir
the
a segurança,
prices of
os acidentes que a gente tem.
our
Agora, o
services.
grande desafio que a
But the
gente
biggest
pensou, que a gente
challenge
vinha
that we've been thinking
discutindo já há
about
muito
now, that
tempo,
we've been talking
é a
about lately,
tecnologia
is the
realmente resolver esse problema. Eu
technology
acho que
that
essa
is
é a parte
technology going to be
difícil.
able to save
E
this problem. So
esse que é o
that's the
marco
biggest
agora do
challenge.
lançamento da nova geração
And that
de
is
vídeo
a
inteligência da
landmark
Trimble.
for
Não
us
só
in
do
terms of
VSafe,
intelligence in
é o
Trimble.
equipamento que vai
Not
instalado
only
no
the
veículo, só que ele é
VSafe is going
parte
to
de um
talk about the
ecossistema
functioning
integrado.
of the
A
vehicle, but
Trimble,
also
e daí
it's
isso é
part of
uma
an
das vantagens de ser
ecosystem,
uma empresa
integrated
global de
ecosystem.
inovação, que estamos
So,
lá, assim como algumas outras empresas que estão no Vale do
like
Silício
all
também estão
the
fazendo isso em
companies
outros
who
segmentos
are
de
located
atuação,
in the Silicon
smartphone,
Valley,
carros
they
e
are
tudo
working
mais.
with
A
smartphones
Trimble
and
pensou
cars.
na
Trimble
tecnologia de
thought
ponta a ponta.
about
A gente
the
pensou desde o
high-end
equipamento que vai
technology,
instalado
from
no
the
veículo,
equipment
qual que é
that
o
you
sistema que vai
provide,
instalado dentro
which
desse
is the system
equipamento,
that will be
como
installed in this
vai ser o
equipment,
servidor que vai receber esses
which
dados de uma rede de
server
telefonia
we
móvel,
receive this
como é o sistema que
data,
processa esses
how
dados,
the
como vai ser o
system
aplicativo
works,
que vai
how we
estar na mão do
process
gestor
this
a hora que ele
data,
precisar dessa
and
informação.
the
Então, foi
manager,
pensada essa
when
cadeia
they
de
get
ponta a
this
ponta.
information, we
Eu acho
need
que
to
o
think
grande
about all this
diferencial
chain, all these
que a gente
elements.
tem em
So
relação
the
a
great
esse
difference
lançamento
that
hoje
we
é uma
have with
tecnologia
regards to
realmente
this launching,
pensada
it's
em
a
conjunto. Eu acho
technology
que a
we
gente costuma dizer
thought
que
in a
o
set
corpo
of
físico
important
e a alma
things. I
foram criadas
think that we
juntos,
do
nasceram
not
juntos.
use generic
Muito legal.
equipment.
Olha só,
We
Rony,
have to
chegou
think of
uma
the body
pergunta
and the
bônus
mind
ali
of
pra
our
gente.
solutions.
Como que foi
So
o
we have like a
processo de
bonus
desenvolver um
question.
produto
So
em nível
what was the process
global?
on how to develop this product globally?
Olha, esse foi
Wow.
é um desafio interessante
It's an
porque
interesting challenge
quando você tem que
because
interagir
when
com
we
outros
have to
locais, não é
interact
só
with
a
other places,
questão
it's
do
not only
desenvolvimento
the
da
development
tecnologia,
itself,
mas é de
the
atender vários
technology,
mercados.
it's
A
to
gente tem
meet
mercados
different markets. We
com
have
um
different
perfil
markets
muito
with
diferente. A
very
gente tem
different
mercados
profiles and
com nível
needs.
de exigência
So
que é
we
os
have
Estados
very
Unidos,
high demanding
que a parte
profile
automotiva
customers
lá é
such as the
muito
USA,
forte,
the
né? O
automobile
símbolo
part is very strong.
do sonho
The
americano aí, uma
symbol
grande
of the
parte
American
disso
dream,
é
and great part of
o
this is
os carros, né, e o que
I
eles
say
representam
cars
dentro
and
da
what they
cultura americana,
represent within the
e
American
também
culture,
a
and
cultura
also
europeia, que é
the European
um nível
culture,
de exigência de
which
segurança,
has
de
a high
individualização, ele é muito
demand
grande.
in terms
Então,
of
acho que
safety.
o grande desafio
So
foi
I
como a
do
gente
believe that the
conecta tudo
greatest
isso com uma
challenge is how we
realidade
connect with the
latino-americana,
Latin
onde a
American
gente tem
reality, where
estradas
we
muito
have
precárias, a
very
gente
poor
tem
roads,
alguns indícios de sonolência, de
some
acidentes mais
signs
graves
of
que nesses
people who were
locais. Então, eu acho que o
sleeping
grande
on
desafio
the
nosso
road,
foi
drivers who
como
were sleeping. This is
conectar
our
todas
biggest
essas
challenge, to how
peças
to connect all
para
these
que a
pieces
gente
together in
realmente
order
conseguisse
to
criar uma solução
manage
que
to create a
resolvesse o
solution
problema
that will
de todos os
resolve,
continentes
solve the
e
problem of all
atendendo
these
isso de
continents
forma
and meeting
especialista
very
o
specific
principal dor, a
needs.
principal dor que cada cliente
So, and
nosso
the main pain
sente em
of
cada
our
desses
customers
locais.
and what
Bom,
is
eu
more
fiquei
important
sabendo
to them.
que existe
Rony,
um
I got
número
to know that there is a
limitado
limited
de
number
na
of
pré-venda do
pre-sale of
do VSafe
VSafe
Plus.
Plus.
E eu queria que você
So I
explicasse
really
como que
would like to
funciona
know how it
isso,
works.
por que é limitado, o pessoal tem
Why
que
is it
correr,
limited? Do
tem
you have
algum
to rush and
acesso, como que
then
vai
do you have a
funcionar?
special access to
Isso
sell
mesmo,
this
Rafael.
product?
a
Yes, this is
gente
right.
fez uma força-tarefa enorme
We joined a
para
task
antecipar o
force in order
lançamento
to
desse produto,
anticipate
né?
the launching of
Inclusive o
this
lançamento
product,
global, ele está
especially it's a
chegando hoje
global
na América do
launching.
Norte, está
It's
chegando na Europa, chegando aqui na
arriving in
América
North
Latina.
American,
E
Latin
para essa
American,
primeira
and for
pré-venda que vai
this
ocorrer
first
durante esse
pre-sale that
trimestre,
will be occurring
aqui
this
na
first
América Latina a
quarter,
gente tem
Latin
apenas 3
American,
mil
we have
unidades.
3,000 units only.
Então, é um volume.
América
So
Latina
it's
toda.
América
so you
Latina
mean for all
toda. É
the
produto, a
Latin
divisão
America? Yes.
da Transportation
So
aqui
the
no Brasil, ela
division of
responde
transportation in
do
Brazil, it
México
responds from
até
Mexico
Uruguai,
to
né, até
Uruguay
Argentina. Então,
and
todos os
Argentina.
países
All
estão aqui
the
conosco.
countries are here with us,
E vai ter
part
algumas
of Latin
condições
American,
especiais
and there will
realmente,
be some
porque
special
esse produto ele
conditions
representa
because
marco
this
em
product
questão de
represents
segurança.
a
A gente não
landmark in
tem
terms of
dúvidas que as
safety.
estradas,
We
os
have
nossos clientes vão ter
no
uma
doubt
operação mais
that in
segura com
our
esse produto.
roads, this product
Então,
will
era um
deliver
lançamento
better
que iria ocorrer o
quality
ano
of
que vem, a
service and
gente conseguiu
safety.
antecipar,
So we managed to
mas o
anticipate the
antecipado
launching.
agora foi uma quantidade limitada que vão
That's
ser
a
entregues,
limited
inclusive
number
ele vai
that
ser
will be
entregue escalonado,
delivered,
né, até o
scaling
fim do
up
ano,
up
e
to
aí
the
o ano
end
que
of the
vem a
year.
gente entra com o
And
nosso
next
processo
year we're going
padrão
to
já de
come with
fabricação
our
global do
standard
equipamento.
launching
Maravilha.
process.
Então, para pré-venda,
So
só
that's for
confirmando, são
pre-sale. Just
3
to
mil
confirm it,
unidades.
so you have like
Isso,
3,000
e de
units.
configurações diferentes, né? A
Yes, and with
gente
different
está lançando
configurations.
agora,
So
a
we are
gente tem
launching, we
128
had
gigas,
128
256 gigas,
gigabytes,
e agora,
and,
pela primeira vez,
now
o de
for the first
512
time,
gigas. Isso é
512
armazenamento interno, que vai se
gigas.
refletir
When you
na
talk
quantidade
about
de
internal
vídeos, quanto
storage,
tempo
which
isso
is
dura
going to
lá
be
dentro.
reflected to
Então, a
the
gente
number of videos,
está trazendo 1000
and we
unidades
are
de cada
bringing
uma dessas
1,000
configurações.
units
Joia,
under each
maravilha, que bacana a
configuration.
gente
So
poder
that's
contar
great.
com
It's
esse
very
nível
nice
de
to
tecnologia
understand
aqui no
with this
Brasil.
level of
E quem quiser
technology
saber
in Brazil.
mais
So if you
sobre o
know
V-Safe Plus e entrar na
about
lista de
V-Safe Plus
pré-venda
and get
dessa
on the
solução
pre-sale
incrível
list
que o
for
Rony
this amazing
acaba de compartilhar
solution,
aqui com a gente, você pode
you can
acessar o
access
link que
Trimble's
foi encaminhado no chat.
from,
Então, o link foi
sent
encaminhado
by
aqui no
our
chat.
chat,
Você pode
and
acessar
you
para
can
saber
just
mais
access
informações.
there just to
O
get
Rony
more
continua com a
information.
gente,
Rony
mas eu
is
vou
still
trazer
with
mais
us, but
atrações
I'm
aqui
gonna bring more
para
guests
abrilhantar
to
essa
really,
nossa manhã especial de segunda-feira.
organize
Para
and
desenvolver o
launch this
V-Safe
meeting
Plus,
this morning. To
a
develop
Trimble
V-Safe
analisou
Plus,
cenários
Trimble analyzed the
futuros e
future
como poderia
scenarios and
impactar a
how it
segurança
would
do
impact,
trânsito com sua
the traffic
tecnologia.
safety with
Mas
through
será
this
que ter um
technology.
pensamento
But,
futurista
to
é
have
importante
this
somente
futuristic
para empresas
thought,
super
it's only
tecnológicas
important for
ou
super
para quem
tech
quer
companies
trabalhar
or for those who want
diretamente
to
com
work
inovação?
directly
Por
with
que
innovation?
pensar
Why
como um
is
futurista
thinking
é
like a futurist is
fundamental para os dias de hoje?
critical for
Quem vai
fundamental for
responder
today?
a essas
Who will
perguntas e
answer these and
outras
other
também
questions
é o
is
Peter
Peter
Cranston, que é head do
Head of
Copenhagen
Copenhagen
Institute for Future
Studies
Studies
Latin
Latin America. Solta a vinhetinha da apresentação.
Opa! Bom dia, todo
Hi,
mundo que estão
good morning
assistindo.
everybody. If you're
prazer
all
enorme
watching, it's a
estar com
great
vocês
pleasure to
hoje,
be with
né?
you today.
Realmente é a segunda
It's
presencial
really
que
the
estou fazendo
second
nessa
presentation
retomada que é
that
tão
I've
importante,
been
e é
taking,
grande
that I've been
prazer.
doing. So it's a
Eu
great
aceitou na
pleasure.
hora o
I
convite do
accepted
Trimble
straight
para
away the
falar com
invitation of
vocês
Trimble to
pouco
talk
sobre
to you
como
today about
enxergar o futuro
how to see the future
e por que
and
futurismo é
why
importante no nosso dia a
futurism
dia.
is important in
E
our daily
eu acho que vou
basis. And I
começar,
think that I
mas
will
antes que
start
nada,
before
falar
everything
que
else. I have to say that it's
como se fala, é nobre
how would I
propósito do
say,
Trimble de
the
querer fazer o trânsito
honorable
mais seguro.
proposal
E
of
sem
Trimble
falar mais
is to
nada da
make
pandemia,
traffic
eu acho
safer.
que a pandemia
Not
nos
only talking
mostrou
about pandemic, but the
uma
pandemic
coisa
showed
que eu
us
acho
one
muito, que me dá
thing
muito
that I
alegria,
think
e que
makes me very
a
happy.
pandemia nos mostrou
The
que o mundo,
pandemic showed us that the
como
world
todo,
as a whole
realmente
is
valoriza a
really
vida humana em
valuing the
cima de
human
tudo,
lives
né?
above all.
E esse precisamos
And
lembrar
we
que o
have to
futuro,
bear
como
this
eu
in
sempre
mind,
falo,
that the
é
future,
lugar
as
que
I say,
precisamos
it's the
olhar com
place where
carinho,
we have to
e que as
look
coisas não estão tão
carefully.
ruins,
Things
mas
are not
podem
as
melhorar,
bad
né?
as we
Esse
think,
só
but they
vou
can
começar
even
com
be
isso, né? Que
better.
todo
So
mundo
I will
parou
start
para
with
salvar
something.
vidas.
Everybody
Esse,
stopped in order
eu
to
acho que
save
é
life during the
legado
pandemic.
muito
I think this is a
bonito
very
para o
important
futuro
legacy
do nosso planeta.
for the
Mas
future
vamos
of
lá.
our planet. But
Primeiramente, vou mostrar
let me
uma
start. I'm
pequena
going to
vídeo
show
para
you a
vocês.
small video.
Eles estão vendo o som? Perfeito. Ah, não, do vídeo não?
We're just having a technical problem.
Perfeito.
Just a minute.
Bom, bom, vamos lá. Então, galera,
So then let's get started. So I really would like to start with this video just to show you
quando se trata do
that
futuro,
when we talk about the
futuro
future,
não existe.
the future
E
doesn't
precisamos
exist,
tratar o
and we need to
futuro
address the future.
batendo.
So now I think we're ready for the video.
What is the hunger?
Agora sim.
The yearning? The incompletion that drives us north? I come here for the sound, the squeak of wings in still air, the crack of glacial ice entering consciousness, the breath of a passing whale, the thrum of my own beating heart. I come here for the silence. Silence begets reverence. I come here for the unknown, the unknowable, the rainbow sheen of the aurora and the stars that point the way. I come here for companionship. I come for solitude. I come here for movement, to ponder currents in a changing sea, to be still, to take stock and start again, to touch the earth, to feel the earth surge and remind myself what is. I come here for an absence, to be lost, separated from the comforts of the known. In a place where if you look, if you listen, if you feel, if you breathe deeply, the land, the sea, the sky, the body scream, you are here.
Galera,
So,
queria
folks,
tomar esse momento,
I
ouvir
really would
esse
like to
poema
register this
maravilhoso,
moment
muito bonito,
to share this poem with
refletir
you
pouco.
and reflect upon
Eu
it.
hoje vou começar
Now,
com
today I am
esse
going
poema
to start with this
que fala
poem
sobre a viagem.
that talks about a
E quem
trip,
melhor,
a journey.
para falar sobre viagem
So
que
who
eu
else is
dinamarquês
better
Hans
to
Christian
talk about
Andersen aqui
Christian
nesse
Andersen with this quote?
Mover-se,
Moving,
respirar,
breathing,
voar,
flying,
flutuar,
floating,
ganhar todo
gain
enquanto você
everything while
vaga pelas
you were
estradas
on
das
this
terras,
trip
remotos, viajar é
throughout
viver, né?
remote
O Hans
lands.
Christian
To
Andersen
trip is to
foi
leave.
famoso por muitos
He's
contas,
been famous
pelo
for many,
conta,
many
pela
years,
capacidade de imaginar.
but for
E
his
com
imagination
poesia,
capacity
nos levar para outros
and with the
mundos.
poetry being
E
able to take
esse
us to
mesmo
other
é o
worlds.
futurismo,
And
tem
this is
que
the
ter esse
futurism.
papel.
The
O
future
futurismo
has
nos
this
leva
role.
para
The
outros mundos
futurism
que ainda não
takes us
existem,
to
mas que pode
other
ser que não
worlds
existir.
that are not
isso,
present,
eu
but
gosto
maybe in the
começou
future.
com
That's
esse poema
why I really
para
would like to
mostrar
set the
que para
tone
chegar
of
a
this lecture, to
futuro
show you
próximo,
that
a gente
to reach
precisa entender
a near
que
future,
o
we need to
futuro
understand
é
that the future
agora.
is now.
A gente precisa
We
entender
need to
que
understand
nesse
that the
momento a gente
future,
precisa
right
nos
now,
lançar,
we need to
nos
launch
soltar.
ourselves.
Porque
Let us go.
quem está seguindo a nossa papo do
So
Instituto do
if
Futuro
you
sabe
were
que a
following
gente
us on
sempre
the
fala
Institute
que
for Future
a nossa
Studies, we
abordagem
say
diz
that
que o
our
futuro
approach is that the
não existe.
future
O que
doesn't
existe é esse
exist.
momento.
What
E
exists
nesse
is this
momento, o
moment.
futuro está
In
sendo
this moment, the
criado.
future is
Não é
being
algo
created.
monstro
This is
que
not,
vão
it's not a
tirar nossos
monster that is
trabalhos
going
e
to
vão
remove our
mudar toda a
jobs
nossa
and is
vida.
going to
Não.
change
O
our whole
futuro é bem
lives.
mais
The
sensível.
future is sensitive.
futuro está
The
sendo
future
criado
is
nesse
being
instante.
built right now.
E na palma de nossa mão está
Right
a
here in our
responsabilidade
hands,
para
we
criar
have
o
the
futuro que a gente
responsibility
quer
to
e a
create the
gente
future
deve
we
tomar
would
essa
like to have, and we have to
responsabilidade
be accountable for that.
Hoje, vou
Today,
mostrar para vocês
I am going to
algumas
show you
maneiras
some
de
ways
como a gente
on
está
how
esperando
we
o futuro vai
expect
haver.
the
Mas
future
depende não só
is
de
going
mim,
to
não só
be.
de Trimble, depende
So it
de
doesn't
todo
depend on
mundo
me, it doesn't depend on
para
Trimble, it
realmente
depends on
fazer
everybody's.
futuro melhor
so that we
acontecendo.
can ensure
Vamos
that
ver
the
aqui
future is
pouco
going to be
sobre
better.
nós, né?
So let's understand, let's see a little bit about it. So if you don't know the institute, we were founded in 1969, and since then we are able to really touch and promote a better world. We do that promoting macro trends and scenarios in the future to try to forecast the future. Even if the future is happening around and exists just now, we need to study and see, backwards, forwards, to understand what the future options are. We say that the futurism work is a very wide work, diverse, so that it's going to drive our present actions. And that's why we're here today. Studying the future, we believe that it belongs to human nature. Each one of us, approximately, there is a study that shows that human brains, we spend 70 to 80% of our time awake, just thinking about the future. Our brain is the best futurist machine ever possible. So we're always trying to plan, trying to understand what's going to happen next. But on our everyday lives, we're stuck around our circumstances. We think like, how am I going to survive? How am I going to cross the street? How am I not going to be run off by a car? Now, it's the moment that we as a society, we have to really bring to our agenda what kind of future we're going to have in the long run. What is best than really to inspire ourselves and travel, so we just let go our old concepts. So study the future belongs to the human nature, but we need to be there to reach this out. We need to create space in our society where we're going to have a dialogue and discuss what kind of future we'd like to have. So it has to do with imagination. So it's different from other types of studies. So you see in this slide, I really love this slide because it shows that the future and futurism is really intertwined between science and arts. So if you look ahead only with science, it's great, we need that. But if you see the future without art, we are going to be very poor. Because if you look ahead without imagination, what is going to be like in the future? Some of our steps to understand this future, we analyze the macro trends and how they impact the world. And we do that analyzing different scenarios, thinking about different scenarios and how would they impact our lives, mainly to help us drive. They're not absolute true. And we have to think this way as well. And this is a very critical and key so we have to understand this journey. Usually we have the moment, the world of his future is interesting, we want to discuss the future, wow, we really would like to be there. But you have a journey that's ahead of you, analyzing some scenarios, a lot of things is happening around us, and you can get confused. When you open up your mind, exactly when you travel to a new place, you get confused at the first, a little bit nervous, stressed, so you have a lot of information, a lot of insights, and everything seems a little bit confusing, but I always say, so calm down. So just hold your horses, because you have to put your foot on the ground, take a deep breath, and we need to celebrate. And after that, after analyzing and then getting yourself on the ground, and then you can get start, and then you see everything crystal clear again,
fazer sentido.
and then
E
it
essa é a
starts
mesma
making sense.
viagem
It's the same
que todos nós
journey
precisamos fazer
that we
quando
have to
estamos
take
olhando para o
when we
futuro.
are looking ahead.
Aqui eu sempre vejo esse com
I
audiência ao
always
vivo,
would
né?
like to share this with this
tela
slide,
aqui, mas aí eu
and
vou falar hoje.
I am going to describe
Aqui
the
temos.
scene. So what you can see here,
Esse foi ensaio.
that
Eu
was,
sempre pergunta, galera, vocês
everybody
acham?
asked me,
Quando você acha que esse estudo foi
when do you
feito?
think
Esse foi
this study was carried
tarefa
out?
ou
That was a
grupo de
homework,
pesquisadores
a
dos
group
Estados
of
Unidos,
researchers from the United
uma revista
States.
queria ver
They
como
wanted to
vai ser
see
a
what
vida
the future
de uma
would
família
look like, an
americana,
American
de uma
family
família
would like
americana no ano 2000.
in
O
2000.
meu primeira pergunta
So
é,
the first question
adivinha
is,
quando
guess
eles fizeram
when
esse
they
desenho? Eles fizeram esse
designed
desenho em
this drawing. It was like
1956.
1956.
Dá para ver pelo
So you could
desenho,
see
etc.
because
Aí a
of
segunda
the
pergunta é,
type
eles
of
fizeram
drawings. The
bem?
second question, was it
56.
very well
Olha só o que
described in
eles entenderam que tem.
1956? So there's
Televisão apreço à
so the
parede,
color TV, wall panel
o
TV,
micro-ondas,
microwave.
fogos gigantes, chão sem poeira.
So,
Bom, chão sem poeira chegou, mas
a
ainda
clean
não é
floor,
viável
so it's
comercialmente,
already
né?
there, but it's
Mas
not
se você
commercially
veja esse
viable.
desenho,
But if you look at this
Pensa,
drawing, well,
eles fizeram
so
trabalho
they
bastante
did a
bom.
very well. They
Eles
did a
entenderam
very
que
well
vai-
job.
que
They
tem para
understood
frente, que
that
está para vir.
you
Aí
had.
a primeira
They could
segunda
understand what
pergunta é
would
sempre,
be look
onde
like the
eles
future. And the second
erraram
question,
aqui?
what was
Bom,
the
como vocês
mistake here?
vejam,
As you could
nesse
see
quadro,
in this drawing
três
here,
gerações
so you
ao
have like
mesmo tempo.
three
Três
generations
gerações ao mesmo tempo,
at the
nos
same
Estados
time.
Unidos, no
In the
ano
United
2000,
States, in
muito
2000,
pouco casas
very
viviam
few
todos os três
people
gerações.
would have the opportunity to live together.
Outras coisas, o
So,
papel entre homem e
So
mulher
the
é
role
muito
between men and
arcaico.
women, it's
Então,
old-fashioned.
o pai que vem,
So the
o pai que vem
father
o pai que vem de fora com helicóptero,
with
né, todo mundo
with an
tem,
arriving
hoje,
in the
mas
helicopter.
hoje não
This
é
is
só o
something
pai
that
que
is not
vem.
happening
Não moram
nowadays. It's
três-
not just the
não moram
father,
três
and you
gerações
don't
na
have
mesma
like
casa
three
ainda.
generations in
Então,
the same
muitas
house.
coisas mudaram.
So a lot of things
Eles fizeram
changed.
ótimas previsões
So I think they had a
em
very
termos
nice
tecnológicos,
forecast
mas
in
eles
terms of
fizeram
technological
péssimas
assets,
previsões
but
em
very,
termos do fator
very
humano,
bad
do
when you talk
comportamento
about
humano.
human
E
behavior.
muitas vezes,
And
o que
very
mais
often what happens,
impacta a nossa
what impacts our
sociedade
society,
é comportamento
it's
humano
the
mesmo.
human behavior.
E eles aqui,
And
eles
right
pesquisa
here
de
in
ano
this
56,
research from
eles fizeram
56,
leitura
they
de
had like this
tecnologia
special
ótimo.
reading from
É
technology.
fácil,
It's
a gente
great,
fala
it's
que é
easy.
relativamente
So
fácil
we say that
prever
it's relatively
tecnologicamente o que está
easy
para
to
vir.
forecast
Mas onde está
what's
o
going to
difícil
happen in terms
é
of
o
technology.
comportamento
What is
humano.
difficult is
Aqui
to
nesse
forecast the
quadro, por
human
exemplo,
behavior.
também, se vocês
In
vejam
this
todo
drawing,
aí,
for example, if
todo
you
aquele-
analyze it
Em ano
thoroughly,
2000, família
in
americana
in
não era
2000,
tão fit,
the family,
né?
the
Não-
American
nada falando
family
muito de americanos, mas
was
todo mundo
not
era um
like
pouco mais
that. It was not
gordinho,
like
né?
as fit
Mas
as
aí
this
eles
one.
não tinham
They were a little bit
percebido
overweight,
monte
but
de
they
mudanças
never
que não entrou na
realized
cabeça deles.
that they would
Então,
have this
muitas vezes
change.
eu falo,
Very
a gente fala,
often we say,
futuro não é só
so
sobre
the future is
tecnologia,
not all
mas
about
como
technology,
comportamento
but
humano também
how
muda.
the
E aqui
human
eles não tinham
behavior
visto
can
isso.
change, and they were
Então,
not
o que
paying
estamos
attention to that.
esperando
What are we
para a nossa
expecting
próxima sociedade,
to
né?
our
Então,
next
pensando
society?
bem, a
Just
gente
thinking
precisa
about
ter
it,
na
we
nossa
need to
cabeça,
understand, we need to
a gente
bear in
precisa
mind,
realistar
we have
que o
to
futuro não é
understand
só
that the
vinculado
future
com
is not just
com
connected to
tecnologia, também
technology,
vinculado
but it's
com
also connected
comportamento
to
humano.
human behavior.
Uma das coisas que a
One
gente
of the things
espera
that we really
para a nossa
expect
próxima
to
sociedade
our next
é que a gente
society
está deixando
is that
atrás
we are no
a
longer
sociedade industrial
an industrial
para a
society.
próxima sociedade.
So
né?
we are moving to what we call the next society.
Tem várias
There are
mudanças
several
nessa
different changes
sociedade
in this
acontecendo.
society happening right now.
Antigamente, a nossa
In the
mundo era
past,
muito
in
mais
our world,
linear.
it was much
A
more
nossa era
linear.
relação uno a uno de
So we had
input e
like
output. Esse
one-to-one
mundo
and
não
output
existe
and
mais.
input. This
A nosso
world
mundo
no
é
longer
cada vez
exists.
mais
Our world
tomada
is really
de
very much
acontecimentos não
connected
lineares,
to
mudanças
non-linear
não lineares. Esse
and changes and really brings us and causing a lot of, or impacting several different areas where we cannot forecast to the same way. In the past, the logics, the society, the industrial society was very different from what we have in the next society, which has a non-linear logic. One of the things that we're studying here, it's wild cards. So the black swine, the black swan. So the non-linear that really brings a lot of change. So the pandemics, for example, the pandemics was not bad. So COVID-19 was bad. So the way COVID struck us all. So we are just expecting pandemics. So we were already expecting pandemics. What we were not expecting from the pandemics and how fast it was spread all over the world. Another wild card that we are analyzing is what we brought it. Don't believe everything you read on the internet, quoted by Abraham Lincoln. And then I think that there are like people at home saying, for sure, Abraham Lincoln was not able to say that because he was not alive when the internet was here. So fake news then. So if you think about fake news, changed our world in the past 5 to 6 years and greatly affected by algorithms. Some of the things that we're hearing is the impact of celebrities. Our world is unshaped. Unshaping new paradigms are popping up. In the past, the greatest empire of the news, they were considered that they would have like the power of information. Nowadays, nobody is really willing to know. Nobody knows more. So I think that people are really paying attention. Everything. Just to explain what I wanted to say. So, real quick, I'm going to go back. Nobody is so nobody's going to be confused about this. I'm going to go back to what I was saying before. So the black swan and the celebrities and fake news addresses where are we getting our inspiration from? Who is dictating the rules? And it has changed for us completely. And nowadays, it's a great opportunity for all of us to really place ourselves in this equation. So talking about the future, we need to open our minds to understand the world is changing. And to do so, one of the things that we need to really talk about it is the mega trends. It's a place that we really bring some certainty where the world is going to.
Well, then we have, currently we have been analyzing 14 microtrends. I'm not talking about all of them today, but I think it's always to have some guidelines in order that will show us how the future will be shaped. In order to talk about futurists, we must look into new things. Now, I'll give you a few tips on where we should be looking at. And these things that are coming up in our society, right?
Desculpa que perdeu o raciocínio
I'm sorry I
pouco
lost
agora,
my
mas
reasoning
estamos
here. I got a
voltando
bit confused here,
para
but we
a
are
palestra aqui
coming
sobre
back
o
to the
futuro, né?
talk about the
Agora já
future.
estou com vocês.
Okay?
Também
I'm back with you.
o futurista aqui
So
da
the
casa é segunda
futurists here is
presencial
that's the
só na retomada.
second
Vamos
presentation
lá.
here. So let's
Aí,
see where
galera,
we're gonna get.
Então, o que
Okay.
eu falo aqui?
So
Com
what I'm
viagem
trying to say here
para
is
o futuro, quando queremos fazer
traveling
uma
into the
viagem para o
future,
futuro,
when we want to travel into the
precisamos
future, we
ferramentas que nos ajudam
need tools
nos
that will
reorientar. Porque a
enable us
desorientação, às vezes, como eu acabo de
guide
mostrar,
us
é a
into the
melhor
future. As
maneira
I
de
said to
buscar
you,
uma
that's the
reorientação,
best way to
né?
find your
E uma das
feedback.
macrotendências
So one of the
que a
micro
gente
trends
está, que
that
eu
I
muito
I
vai nos
believe
ajudar
that will help us
a ver futuro
to
muito
see
melhor.
a better future.
Essa macrotendência a gente
This
chama
macro
explosão do
trend is
conhecimento.
explosion of knowledge.
Se pensa comigo, uma de nossas
Think
14
with me,
macrotendências,
one of our
para mim, uma
14
das mais
macro trends,
importantes
one of the most
é esse,
important is
explosão do
this one,
conhecimento ou sociedade
knowledge
do
explosion.
futuro.
Is the
sociedade
thing of
do
the future, is the
conhecimento.
society of the future, knowledge.
Estudo
A
que
study
o TCU fez
that
sobre
TCU
Amazonas
did about
intensificou
Amazon
40.000
identified
de alimentação natural que hoje não
40,000
são
sources of
exploradas.
food
E a
which
gente come
have
em Dinamarca
not been explored at the
batata e
moment.
água
So
proteína.
in
Aqui no
Denmark we
Brasil
eat potato
comemos
and some
arroz e
protein,
feijão
and here we
e
eat
água
rice and
proteína.
beans and
E
some
existem
protein.
somente no
And there are
Amazonas
so many more, only in
40.000
Amazon,
fontes de
40,000
alimentação natural
sources
hoje
of
não
food
explorado.
that have not been
Que
explored yet.
onde também vemos
It's
esse macrotendência,
also where we
explosão
see
do
this
conhecimento.
macro
Se
tendencies with the
olharmos, por
explosion
exemplo,
of
nas
knowledge.
notícias,
If we look into the news,
se
for
você
example,
pegou
if
hoje
you today, for
o
instance,
jornal,
you
o New
take the
York
newspaper,
Times,
New York Times, for example,
uma semana,
one
você
week,
tinha que ler New York
you
Times
had to
5
read the
anos,
New
100
York
anos
Times
atrás
for
para ter o
5
mesmo
years ago,
conteúdo,
10 years
para
ago,
ter
to
o
have the
mesmo
same content that they are showing
sabedoria.
today. Look,
Então,
10 years of
estamos
knowledge
vivendo tudo
before, and
muito
now you
conectado,
have
uma
this so
explosão
fast.
de
So we are
conhecimento.
fully
No
connected
fim das
now.
contas, que nos
At the end
mostra
of the
esse
day, what is this
nos
megatrend
mostra
showing
que
us?
o mar infinito
That it's a
está à
sea
frente de
of
nós
knowledge
é o
that is
único
ahead of
limite
us.
que
That's the
existe.
only limit that
Ou,
exists.
dito melhor,
Or
que não
I would
existe
say the
limites.
best, that there is no limit.
Tudo é possível.
Everything is
E
possible.
essa é a beleza de viver.
And this is the
Se
beauty in
pensarmos bem,
life.
por
So
exemplo,
if we
uma
think
área
about
que eu
an
acho bem
area, for
interessante é o
example, that
futuro da
I think
saúde,
it very,
que
very
também
interesting is
estamos
the
vendo que o futuro da
health
saúde vai
sector.
ser cada
And we
vez
can
mais
see that will be
prevenção.
more and more about
Como a
prevention.
pandemia nos mostrou,
And
como
with the
eu falei na
pandemic, it
entrada,
also shows you, as I
que
mentioned at the beginning, that
realmente
we
foco na
really,
saúde
the
é uma
focus
das
on health is
macrotendências
one of the macro trends.
mais
That's
importante
the
para o
most
nosso
important
futuro.
and most valuable for us
todo
in the future, working with
O
prevention.
planeta parou.
The whole planet
para salvar
stopped to
vidas
solve a
humanas.
problem and save human
Isso não
lives.
podemos esquecer.
So we can't forget that.
Então, podemos ver que
So we could
muitas
see
vezes
through the pandemic
pessoas
that
estão olhando para o
many
futuro
times
com
people are
medo.
looking into the
Muitas
future
vezes
with
as pessoas
fear.
estão
People
olhando para o
fear the
futuro.
future.
Ai, mas melhor
But,
pensar no
you
que
know,
sabemos com
it's
certeza,
better not
em
to
vez de
think
nos
about it
soltar.
not knowing,
Aí, trabalhando
not
com
to
o
worry
futuro mais
about.
15
But
anos,
if I've been working with the
realmente eu acho
future for
isso
more than 5
bombásio.
years, and I think
Porque
it's
quando
nonsense.
olhamos
Because if we
neutralmente,
look
da
from a
vida
neutral
salvos,
standpoint, that lives
pessoas
saved
hoje no planeta que têm
and
vidas melhores
people
que 50
today
anos
who
atrás, a
have better
porcentagem
life
é bem
quality,
melhor. O
the
porcentagem
percentage is much
de alcançação é
better.
bem melhor. Então, não precisamos
So
olhar
we
só
don't
para o
need
lado
to
negativo.
fear the
Precisamos
future
solucionar
and only
problemas,
look
sim.
at the negative
E tem
things.
muito para
We need to
solucionar.
solve problems.
Mas
We have a lot to
mostrarmos como
solve,
mundo
but
que estamos
we can
capazes
see,
de solucionar
show the
isso.
world what we can do
Então,
and how we can
o que
solve
ele
these
fala? Se
problems. I
solve-se.
always say,
Porque,
you
com
know,
certeza,
free yourself. Do not to
a
worry
única
too
coisa
much.
que podemos ter
Certainly,
certeza é
the
que
only
não
thing that we
temos
can be
certeza de
sure about
absolutamente
is that
nada.
we are not sure about anything. We don't know anything.
Lugar, por exemplo,
If you
na área
think
medicinal,
about the medical area,
onde eu tinha dor da
yesterday I had a lower back pain, so and it made me think.
Eu lembro minha mãe tinha dor das costas. Aí,
For example,
10 anos atrás,
My mother had lower back problem. Okay, what were the recommendations the doctors gave? Lie down and don't move. That was the doctor recommendation or a crazy treatment. Today, the doctors will say that's the worst advice that a doctor can give you if you have lower back problems. So the best thing you can do is keep moving. Move your body, be active. So in 10 years only, the approach, the doctor's advice, they have changed it completely. What you should be doing with your lower back problem, for instance. So there is nothing that is showing that in 10 years' time, most things that we believed before, that we believe today, will not be valid anymore. And then we see that that was actually wrong. So it's just to see the potential of our future. We need to question. We need to raise questions and look into what we are doing today, because we may be completely wrong. So this is one of the mega trends. I mean, knowledge explosion. And this causes a society which is more and more is self-destructive in order to rebuild itself in a better and different way. We call this one of the impacts. It's a hyper agile or hyper fast society. In our society is that the moment between our knowledge becomes unnecessary, and it's every day shorter. So this means that we need to release ourselves from this belief that we have. And we see it more and more instantly and faster in our society. Another example of these unexpected changes and looking for the unexpected, it's the concept that's the brownies, the brownie. For example, they reactivated the brand brownies, and one of the most people who buy in brownies. That's another segment. It was surprising to the company that the biggest markets were for the brownie, but it's not anymore. So when we look into the future, it's always good to think about what we didn't expect it. But this example also shows a world in which we are more related and naked to the human rights and our worldwide society, and giving freedom of speech, and so that people can express themselves. When we look into the technologies, for example, all these technologies and the way they've been coming and happening and connecting everybody, we call this anarchonomy, mixing the word anarchy with economy, new platforms that are leading the revolution and the destruction of our old beliefs and bringing new ones. So many times we see the future as a place of uncertainties, but also, yes, it's a place of uncertainties in order to be revolutionized. And just to illustrate my point, that in the past, we gained freedom of wanting. We wanted. Nowadays, more and more people have houses, they have food. Up to the moment, what do we want? We want to be the owners of everything. We want to have the freedom to have everything, to own everything that we want. So today we have TV programs that help people to get rid of things, you know, all things that they accumulate, because our society is changing. It's a transition related to owning a house. So society values was in the physical product. Today, more and more, it's the relationship and how you deal with this new world. And then, for example, we can align with our new values in order to shape a more sustainable future For instance, studies that the Copenhagen did a few years ago, we mentioned the tendencies of the freedom of being the owner. So, but how? Nobody wants to be the owner of a house or car in the future. Yeah, maybe. But in long-term future, our analysis that people less and less will want to be owners of their own houses and cars, that we want the freedom to travel. And it's not going to be important anymore having a house or a car. And many people are fearing, say, wow, our society is changing that way. Yes, it is. And it's nothing new. But one thing that we always point out is that, you know, don't panic. There is no need to panic or fear. There is always a window of adaptation, as we can see here, for instance. Not everybody is ready to live in small places, but it's a concept which is getting closer and closer to us. It's a trend. But we have this adaptation window. But what I wanted to leave as a message and to show you is that as we perceive the world today, we will perceive the world in a very different way tomorrow. This is why it's important to be flexible and look ahead. And in these words, we see that the mobile cocoon, for example, as a concept, that all this dear mobile phone as us is, you know, everything is done through the mobile phone. None of us really will deny that this little thing here is controlling our lives. And from the moment we wake up to the moment we are going to bed, this is controlling our lives. We need this. This is part of a Brazilian researcher. He showed this as a mobile cocoon trend. So we are staying in our bubble. So we don't need things that we have at home, because most of the important things that we need, our friends, our relations, everything is stored in the mobile phone with us in our pocket. So without any doubt, everybody is speaking badly about Facebook and the social media. We have all this news, okay? It comes with questioning. But this one came and transformed our lives to a better place, because it gave us more freedom to the individual. But how we manage this freedom is essential to everybody. So we call this trend the cocoon, mobile cocoon. It's all with us all the time. The danger is that we are all going to stay in our own bubbles, and we will be looking into ourselves through our mobiles. So we are looking into the future, which would be a better place. If we want to see the future as a better place, we need the antidote that will be show you how do we get out of this bubble. And here in Brazil, we are happy to see that one of the best antidotes to get out of our cocoon caused by these bubbles is the holistic connection with nature.
And the nature is the best way to detox us. We're also realizing that the world is evolving and really respecting nature, the respect the nature deserves, because nature is like a treasury. In reality, in my journey as a futurist, I am very much convinced that we don't need to go further to have our answers. Sometimes, very often, the answers we're looking for is just ahead of us, in front of us. And sometimes we can find the answers in nature. How are we going to deal with this when we understand that we live in houses, in urban spaces? So as I see it, the biggest challenge in the future is really to ensure the access to nature and deliver nature to the citizens who live in the urban areas. So one of the mega trends in the world is the urbanization. So Copenhagen project is really to develop energy and transforming this factory, which is already a factory that really generates energy, and transformed it into a place where, you know, you can enjoy yourself, right? So Copenhagen, so you can ski inside Copenhagen to bring nature to the cities. Another way to see that and bring this technology and this antidote is really to think as a child. In Denmark, for example, we launched a new concept, especially during the pandemics, which was it was a very serious issue because the kids used to stay outside all the time. And you had like kindergartens in the forest, so the parents would take the children in the bus stop and take them to spend the whole time in the woods. So this is a way to reconnect the human being to nature. And we need really to promote this type of accessibility and nature in the future. Another trend, for example, it would be the solar energy. So that you have like the agriculture production within the city, so urban farming, integrating nature into our everyday lives. So as a new solution, so people, you know, the world is constantly evolving and bringing new launches and new things. So fast food, for example, was present in the 30, 40 years. And now, from now on, we are very much focusing on slow food. So again, we're changing the status quo. So sometimes it's the best we can have. So I mentioned health in the beginning of my presentation, and something that we cannot, you know, forget as futurists, and the pandemics has brought to us, which is the well-being, is the mainstream. And it's not just in the mainstream. Welfare or well-being is on the top of the ranking, the organizations of United Organizations. So it's very valuable. What the best asset we can have is the human being. In the past, we had a health system, for example, and in most parts of the world, we have a health system that only treats diseases. From now on, we are really working with prevention. So everybody that really had gone through the pandemics, we are very much worried about our health. We can see the change. It should be continuing, monitoring our own health. The pandemic, it's not just something that changed something for the bad. I think the pandemics brought something good for the future, because now we are monitoring our health. And it doesn't depend on the states, on the government, on the health systems. But each one of us has the accountability to monitor our own health. I think this is a major shift. Let me go back to the slide. So health is a place where you have the future in the world. Another world is the future of transportation. As we can see in this event in Trimble, you were seeing how we're going to improve transportation. One of the places that we are really looking forward this change in terms of human beings, hearts, and saved lives is in transportation. Nowadays, we understand that it doesn't have to do with if we are going to have an automated car or not. It's a matter of time. The technology is here. And one of the things that we understand that is going to drive these autonomous cars, because the future of the transportation is autonomous and run by electricity. One thing that is going to drive and really scale it up is safety. We're going to be able to save lives that we're not able to save before. But we need to face the ecosystem battle. Who is going to run the business in the next millennium? So as I said before, so the smartphones are going to be, they have like a day to finish, right? So the future of the transportation is one of the places where we're going to communicate among citizens, clients. A lot of things are going to come. So I think it's going to be an ecosystem battle. And in this future, we can see that we prepare to be naked and totally transparent, because the future, we have the liquid identity. And our society changes as fast as our identity. So, if we look at the future, and this is almost the end of my presentation, if we look at the future, so the best advice I could give you is let go. Because our momentum is liquid. There are no certainties. And this is what is nice about it. So imagine we are seeing that there is another thing that we are really looking forward. We believe that the new luxury is the best of me, of myself. And the future luxury is less connected to material things and more connected to non-material assets, non-tangible assets. So the new luxury is the best of myself. So we have several different solutions to a sustainable future to all of us. And this shows us that time is key, because time is the only thing we have. This moment, this glimpse of moment is gone, and we have to move on. So we prepare ourselves, because the future is going to be very different from what is it today. And I believe that what the good side of pandemics, it showed us that the acceleration that we have is that the future is already here. So Antigona says, so now you have to do your job. You have to bring your solutions, and bring to the better world. Sometimes, people say that, Peter, so what technology are going to really revolutionize our moment? The technology, the quantum technology is going to be, revolutionizing our world. We're not just talking about technology. The technology is when the human being changed his perception about several different possibilities and open up spaces to different ways of thinking. Another thing that is really, so we say that the future is a female, belongs to the women. For many, many, many years, we had this systematic error or difference between men and women. And nowadays, we can see that women, or the women power, is one of the things that probably is going to impact our future in the society more than any other technology. 3 years ago, we had more women in the universities than men. So we have more people graduate, more women graduated than men. So I think it's a revolution. We believe that we see that in the future, for example, in Sweden, 47% of houses are single. And this women powering is very important. It helps us really to understand and perceive what the world is going to be like. And again, So we need to talk about human rights, freedom of speech, because I think that what is nice to live in this world is that we can really decide what we would like for the future. Another trend that is really, the society is aging. Nowadays, even with the pandemics, we could never see so many people living so long. And the expectation here is that we're going to be able to live up to 120, 140 years. We're going to have technology, we're going to have wisdom to make the human beings live longer. So we say that the 60s is the new 40s. So the future doesn't belong to the young people, it belongs to the senior citizens. And we need to understand how we are going to build a better future for the senior citizens. And a lot of people say, so I don't want to leave above 80, 100. Why? This is a lie. So if you're able to reach and 140, dancing, having fun, kissing, so everybody wants to live as better as they can. So I'm going to give you some hints now. I have like 3 tips. So if you want to strengthen your future thinking, you have 3 areas to look at. One is, so the radar, scan and monitor the future studies, try to see where the world is going. So the other one is SWORD. So we're talking about innovation, how we're going to do things differently, how to promote innovation, so to do things in a different way, SWORD in a way to defend ourselves and just try to point out new ways. So the best way to really forecast the future or preview the future is really to bring innovation. And this is Herman Kahn, and he's got a very interesting vision about the future. He says that the future is not specialized, the future belongs to generalists. The future belongs to all of us. Sometimes the solution doesn't come from the experts. So you're not going to bring the solutions to your areas. So I think that it brings us hope, and the creative deconstruction and anthropophagy of the innovation process. I think this is one of the strongest paintings I've ever seen in Brazil, because we need that to realign the future. Because in the future, everybody needs to think like entrepreneurships and being revolutionaries. And if we look ahead, so the best tip would be we need to look at the future as a place, as a transformation space for human development. We need to really develop something real in people's lives. And if we're here, we need to create a future and take human beings beyond the limits or boundaries. And right now, I really would like to thank you. Sorry for the technical problems we had, but really, I think what is the most valuable advice I can give you is really there is a universe and to really develop and make it happen. And we need to see this future. Thank you very much for your time.
Muito bem, senhoras e
Great,
senhores.
thank
Este
you,
foi
ladies
Peter
and gentlemen. That was
Cronston.
Peter Cronston
Obrigado,
with
Peter.
us.
Olha só, já
Thank you,
estamos
Peter,
entrando no
very
estúdio
much.
em
So we're
movimento.
coming back
Olha
to
só,
the studio
insight que o
moving,
Peter
you know,
falou
like the
aqui logo no
invite
comecinho da
that
apresentação dele.
Peter
O
gave
futuro
us, the
é
invitation
quando?
that
O futuro
he did. So
é
when is
hoje,
the future?
senhoras
The
e
future is
senhores.
today, ladies and
Lembrando
gentlemen.
que se você
Keep in
está aí
mind that if you
assistindo
were
em
here
inglês, você também
watching
pode
in
assistir
English,
essa
you can also
apresentação
watch this
em
presentation in
português. Existem 3
Portuguese.
links.
We have
O link
3
original,
links, the
o link em
original,
português
and the
e
link in
também o
Portuguese, and
link
also
em
the link
inglês está na
in
descrição dos
English.
vídeos
It's in the
e também
description
lá
of the
no e-mail de
videos and also
confirmação
in
que
the
você recebeu.
confirmation email that
Combinado?
you received.
Nosso evento
Right?
está todo
So
vapor,
our
senhoras e senhores. Vamos dar
event is
continuidade
booming here.
aqui
We're going
ao
to
nosso
carry
evento.
on
Mas
with
olha
this.
só, responder ao
But
futuro é
answering to
sempre
the future is
desafio.
always a
Quanto mais
challenge.
conhecimento e
the more
informação sobre
knowledge,
uma
the more
área de
information
conhecimento,
about an
maior a
area of knowledge,
capacidade de enxergar
the
esse
greater the
futuro e
capacity
conseguir
to see this
hoje
future and to see
sedimentar
beyond,
o
and to
caminho para
consolidate the
alcançar
way
ele.
today to
A
reach this
Trimble
future.
constrói
The
hoje o futuro
tribe
do transporte para conectar
builds
as empresas
today
com seus
to
consumidores
connect
finais
companies
e
with their
mudar a
end
forma
consumers
como
and change
o
the
mundo
way the
trabalha.
world works.
Sabemos que a
So we know
logística
that
tem um impacto
logistics
na
has an impact
sociedade
on
e
society,
percebemos
and we
isso
realize this
ainda mais
even more
quando?
during
Durante a
the
pandemia.
pandemic.
Afinal, como a Trimble
After
acredita que
all,
será o
as
futuro do
Trimble believes that the
transporte
future of
e seus
transport will
impactos
be
na
and the
sociedade como um
impacts
todo?
on our society
Para
as
nos
a whole,
contar sobre
in order
esse
to tell
assunto,
more about
convido
that,
James
I
Langley,
invite
que é
James
Senior Vice
Langley, who
President
is the
da Trimble.
same
Ele é
vice
especialista em
president of
Business
Trimble. He's an
Intelligence,
expert in business
Transportation e
intelligence,
Executive Management.
transportation and executive
E eu vou
executive
chamar a
management.
vinhetinha agora
I'm going
apresentando
to
o
call
James.
the
Solta aí a
vignette here to
vinhetinha.
introduce James.
Hi, James. Nice to meet you. I have a question to start our meeting here. What is the Trimble's vision about the transport's future? How it will affect society? It's up to you. James, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Yes, I'm gonna make the question again. Por favor, o pessoal do teleprompter pode voltar um pouquinho a pergunta ali para eu refazer essa pergunta aqui para o James agora. Ele pode me ouvir. First of all, nice to meet you, James. So nice to have you here. What is the Trimble's vision about the transport's future? How it will affect society?
Oh, well, we certainly have a lot of thoughts on that, and so do our customers and partners. It's certainly changing rapidly with everything that's going on all around us. So definitely appreciate the introduction and appreciate the time with everyone today. We appreciate you spending the time with us. So I'm James Lang, the Senior Vice President of Transportation. And just for those of you who don't know me, I've been in the transportation industry for 28 years. I've spent all but 8 of those years working on the other side of the business with carriers and drivers and shippers, et cetera. And I've only spent about 8 years of those working in the technology side. But at Trimble, the way we see it is, we've got to do a better job of connecting the supply chain. If you really want to drive efficiency, if you really want to drive sustainability, if you really want to impact society and overcome all the challenges that we face today, we really have to think about connecting the pieces. Traditionally, we've worked very much in silos, and that's got to change. So that's why, we talk about connecting the supply chain, and I'm going to really be focused on transportation primarily because that's really our swim lane and where we have the greatest impact and how we can really be better together. Okay. So if you think about Trimble as a whole, we bring scope and scale to a lot of our markets, right? Geospatial, construction, agriculture, and of course, transportation. In geospatial, over 70% of the top geospatial companies use Trimble, over 10,000 surveyors of mapping firms in North America. We've got over 29 million unique SketchUp activations a year. We've got over 10 million users of Trimble Connect. In agriculture, we're helping in 155 million acres using Trimble technology and over 345,000 displays in the field. And you think about 115,000 customers subscribing to Trimble correction services and high precision GNSS. So when you look at the impact you talk about society, Trimble focuses in on markets that are really real workers doing real work, right? It's mud on the boots, dirt under the fingernails. There's a lot of inefficiencies that can be served through better processes, efficiency, automation, optimization technology. And transportation is really no different. So if you look at the transportation sector, for Trimble, the scope of Trimble transportation, we're in over 1 million vehicles that we're tracking. We have telematics units on board in over 1.4 million vehicles. We're working with 99% of the top 200 fleets in North America. We're rapidly growing in Europe and Latin America. Everything from regulatory compliance and sustainability to apps and efficiency, routing, mileage, navigation, shipper TMS, carrier TMS, supply chain visibility, vehicle health and maintenance, video and safety solutions, predictive analytics. What's the point of all this? What we're really working to do is to make sure that we can work with that, you know, the mud on the boots, dirt on the fingernails, all those points of inefficiency that really enable workers to work better, to work smarter, to work more effectively, more efficiently, and do it in a more sustainable, in a safer way as well, right? So if you look at kind of, you know, our roots of where we got started, you know, targeting key challenges in the industry, we were really heavily focused on carriers. We're very carrier centric, you know, maximizing resource utilization, mitigating maintenance expenses, managing driver constraints, yield managing freight networks, mitigating fuel expenses. If you think about a carrier's operations, it's all about maximizing resource utilization in everything you do. It's not only what helps that organization to be more efficient, more profitable, but it's also what helps those drivers to be more efficient, to take the friction out of their jobs, to make sure that, you know, everything they do is productive, that they're not wasting time, they're not wasting fuel, you know. And on the, you know, network side of it, on the revenue side of it, you know, for the carrier, it's all about having the intelligence and the analytics to make the right decisions about defining the freight network that you optimize, because your potential is defined by the freight that you choose, the customers that you serve, the segments that you go after. And on the cost side of this, the equation really is, you know, drivers, fuel, and maintenance. So if you can help optimize those things, then you can start to bring it together to make, you know, carriers a lot more productive. You know, but what we're also, you know, really beginning to learn is it's so much further beyond just the carrier and the driver and the cab of the truck. If you're truly talking about the supply chain, that's where you have to get into bringing shippers into the equation, 3PLs into the equation, et cetera, and moving up the supply chain to connect the dots in a better way so that we can optimize the pieces in a way that we haven't traditionally in our silos. Now, in everything that we do, safety and sustainability are fundamental. So we have to make sure that's being good stewards of our industry, it's good stewards of our customers and the people, not only and the products that, you know, we put out and the people that we serve, but also the greater community around us. If you look at just what we do in fuel optimization alone, for example, you know, we can reduce millions and millions of tons of carbon emissions. We can reduce empty miles in an industry. We can drive to more productive miles in a more efficient, more optimized way, right? And the reality is we all must change and adapt to the pressures that we face. Our customers talk to us about their pressures all the time. We need you to connect data and workflows more effectively. We've got all these siloed, disparate systems that really aren't connected, they really aren't integrated, and we're living in this kind of fragmented chaos, right? We need you to help us to enable us to scale with technology. You know, help us to take these manual, difficult processes, put them together, put a process together, and through technology, help us to scale our business. We need you to innovate faster with less disruption to our business. So not only do we need you to go faster, but we need you to make change management more fluid. At the same time, we all have technology pressures, right? How are you going to stay ahead of an accelerated curve when it comes to technology changes? We all know that when you look at the change all around us, because of the disruptions in supply chain, because of all these outside pressures from e-commerce, digitization, pandemics, workforce shortages, social unrest, all of these pressures are forcing so much more innovation, initiative, acceleration, agility for change, right? Now, as the world is also moving to more cloud native and cloud connected technologies, the integration of data in order to give you the opportunity to optimize workflows becomes even more possible. You know, we're also looking at the fact that, you know, people are looking for more plug and play microservices and open APIs. People don't want to rip and replace all of their existing systems that have all this investment in. Hey, help us connect the dots, help it make it more like Legos, help us connect the pieces, as opposed to buying these heavy, you know, client server monolithic applications that don't talk to each other, right? So it's we've all got a lot on our plates that we're trying to solve. So what we're trying to do is bring these solutions together in our transportation platform to integrate data and optimize procurement, planning, and execution workflows, right? So what do we mean by that? So procurement, the right freight for the right carrier, right? Planning, the right load for the right asset right now. Execution, pick it up and deliver it on time, safely, and efficiently. But we believe as we expand beyond just a you know, more of a carrier point of view, not just the carrier and the driver, which are key stakeholders in the connected supply chain, especially in transportation, but moving also into integrations more direct with shippers and 3PLs. Why? Because a lot of the work that you need to optimize to make it more efficient, if you start fundamentally at the inception of the order itself, right? And the data in itself, a lot of that data is shared data, but our systems and applications were largely built to serve individual stakeholder purposes, optimize a carrier, optimize a driver, optimize a shipper, optimize, the broker's operations, et cetera, as opposed to thinking about holistically, fundamentally, if you get it down to a pallet, a SKU, a part, right, et cetera, that data is shared across these things. And we're doing a lot of the same functions, just from different aspects. So we've got our carrier and shipper TMS solutions. We've got routing, mapping, navigation, and Trimble maps. We've got asset maintenance solutions with our TMT applications. We've got this digital freight marketplaces. We've got, all of these different things, including telematics that we have in multiple countries that are helping to get that efficiency and safety in the cab of the truck to get that driver to where they need to be on time and safely. But when you start to put all that together, you should think about it as a transportation continuum, right? So on the kind of the buy side of it, the shipper 3PL is working the source to settle process, source, order, plan, tender, track, receive, so that we can be in the middle on the settlement in this marketplace, or basically in this continuum, in this platform, right? On the carrier broker side, as sellers, you've got to work the bid to bill process, bid, order, resource plan, move, deliver, bill. So when you look at it from that side, it would be the CRM system, the HR management system, financial management system, ERPs, warehouse management, financial management. We've got all these systems and applications that largely were built in silos independently to be thought of, to be acted, to be executed upon by individuals or individual users. What we believe is this, all of this context around us, all these challenges around us, from the supply chain disruptions that we're seeing every day, and I know you see it just as well as we do. We're disrupted even as Trimble, so we see it not only internally but also in our customers, through the pandemic and worker shortages and everything else that's going on right now. It compels us to start being better together, not only inside of Trimble and inside of Trimble Transportation, but I think as an industry. If you think about the transportation industry as a whole, not even in just any given market, but globally, we've got to do a better job of thinking about how we connect. We've got to do a better job of thinking about, how to move on to that next generation of technology, to be more cloud native, to be more cloud connected, to build more microservices and more plug and play open APIs, so that this data can be visible, it can be shared, the workflows can be integrated. If you can integrate that data, you can start to integrate and build workflows. If you can build those workflows, you can optimize those workflows. If you can optimize those workflows, you can finally drive out a lot of the inefficiencies we see every day. It'll absolutely not only drive, the overall cost of the supply chain down, it'll drive the efficiency and health of the organizations and the transportation organizations serving the supply chain to be healthier, drivers to be healthier, to have better jobs with less friction. And ultimately, from the sustainability side of it, you're going to drive a lot of that efficiency out. You're going to drive out a lot of wasted fuel. You're going to drive out a lot of wasted time. You're going to drive out a lot of engine wear and tear on vehicles, the time that they waste just idling as opposed to being productive and moving the freight that we need moved and delivered. What's awesome about all this is we come together. What's amazing is I love transportation and I love supply chain because we touch everybody, right? So you talk about the impact on society. If it wasn't for what we do together, the people don't have, bread, milk, diapers, wipes, whatever on their shelves, right? You look at the pandemic when the world shut down, guess who never went to sleep? Transportation. It never stops. It's 24/7, 365. So we owe it to ourselves, we owe it to each other, and we do owe it to our society and the greater world population to do this better and to do it better together. So hey, that's all I've really got to say today. I just want to thank our customers, partners, speakers, et cetera, for dialing in. Really appreciate your time. Your time is valuable. And up next, I believe we're going to be moving over to Elwyn McLaughlin to talk a little bit more.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you, James. So nice to have you here. E a gente
Obrigada,
volta aqui para o
James.
Brasil, dando
We are
continuidade
coming back to
a esse
Brazil
incrível
here,
evento. Já
carrying on
recebo
with
o
this
Rony
incredible
aqui
event.
novamente no nosso
Ron
estúdio,
is
mas é
back
muito
here in our
legal
studio, but it's
saber
nice,
sobre
it's great
essas
to
novidades
know more about
tecnológicas
this
que a
technological
Trimble está
novelties
apresentando
that
hoje aqui para a gente,
Trimble
viu,
is
gente?
bringing
A
us
tecnologia,
today.
ela é imprescindível para a gente alcançar esse futuro. O futuro, ele só se torna possível com a aplicação de inteligência artificial, que analisa dados, que está ao lado do ser humano e torna o dia a dia mais prático. A gente vai para uma outra fase agora, uma outra etapa desse nosso evento, e eu recebo aqui o Rony novamente. Rony, você está preparado para essa segunda sabatina de perguntas aqui?
Olha, você está fazendo umas perguntas muito boas. Continuar no ritmo, a gente dá conta. Vamos lá.
Olha só, tem uma pergunta aqui. Como que a Trimble começou a utilizar a inteligência artificial em seu software, o VFleets?
Isso. Bom, antes de tudo, eu vou introduzir o VFleets
So before
para o pessoal,
talking
né? Às vezes
about
o pessoal
I'm going to
não
introduce
conhece ainda.
VFleet
Ele é o nosso
to
sistema
everyone.
principal de
VFleet.
gestão
So
de
it's
frotas
our
relacionado à
main
telemetria, aqueles sensores de movimentos que eu
management
comentei
freight
nosso momento
TSM.
anterior.
So it's something that I have just showed you before. So we have like 3 pillars besides, so it's a TMS system. So as James mentioned at the end of his presentation, the transportation never ends. So it's 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 days. So besides safety, we really focus on productivity and efficiency and cost, which is something that really impacts in our lives. Everybody that consumes something that has been transported by one of these vehicles, VFleets brings all these 3 pillars. So we understand that the software is a tool, and if the tool is not used, it is not going to bring the result the client expects. And that's why some time ago we created the Trimble methodology, which is called TMS, which implement when we bring this to our clients. And I am going to, do you remember that 5 million data? So if people depend on analyze on a spreadsheet, it wouldn't be efficient. It would take too long. So the biggest gain here is really to analyze billions of information and data in our system to refer to the client what would be the next step. So this is a yacht's biggest challenge. We call it trails. So what would be the client's trails to reach excellence for their TMS? So we analyze all this information and we would be able to classify the operation in 4 different levels. Critical, that we need a lot to be improved. Development, evolution, that where he reached the second stage of development, and the third is excellent, when he reached the benchmark. So you may have a question, I am working so hard, am I working right? So I think this tool will help to answer this question. I'm able to understand if this operation is really bringing efficiency.
Muito bom, é muito interessante.
Great,
A
it's
gente
very
vê a
interesting.
inteligência
We
artificial
see that
sendo
artificial
aplicada,
intelligence
né,
is being
Rony, de diferentes
applied and
maneiras
used in different
dentro da
ways
Trimble.
within
E
Trimble.
depois de classificar
And
a
after
operação em
classify the
níveis, como que os
operation
clientes
in
podem
levels, how
utilizar
can
na prática
customers
essas
use the
informações?
information in their daily
Ótima
basis?
pergunta, porque
Excellent questions.
eu tenho uma teoria assim, as pessoas só
I have a
entendem
theory.
quão
People
difícil
only
é
understand how
definir
difficult it is to
objetivo e
define
como
a goal
mensurá-lo,
and
definir a
how
meta
to
e mensurar
measure,
quando ela se depara com
when they
esse
face
trabalho num
this
quadro em branco.
work that they
Então,
have to
quando
be
você
a blank
tem que
sheet,
olhar
for
para a sua
example, and you have to
operação,
look at your
porque
operation.
o objetivo
Because
macro, ele é
the
fácil.
micro goal
Quando
is
a gente fala
simple,
de
it's easy.
transporte,
When we
igual
talk
aquele
about
slide
transport,
que o
like the
James
slide
mostrou,
that James
ele
showed,
tem alguns pilares, tem um
they
pilar
have
de
some
custo,
pillars,
tem um
the
pilar de
cost,
segurança, então
safety.
que toda empresa que tem
So all the
veículos, todo dono de
companies
veículos quer
with threats, what do they want?
reduzir
They
acidente
want
e
to
não
reduce
ficar rasgando
accidents
dinheiro,
and
é fácil.
not throw
Agora,
money out of the window.
traduzir
It's
isso
easy,
para
but
o que o
translate
gestor,
this
para o que a empresa
into
precisa fazer na
management and
prática,
what the company needs to do in practice. It's another step.
Então, o grande
Quando
a nossa inteligência ela classifica,
when our intelligence classifies of these 4 levels, depending on the level and the characteristics of the company, that will suggest goals, indicators to improve, that is going to give a step ahead and say for your operation to reach the next level, to better your freight. The goals are this TASI, our artificial intelligence, they will be doing that. So TASI will suggest the indicators, the targets, in very practical ways in what the company needs to do to build a better future. So it's changing today, like Peter said. I think the biggest challenge is one, from that moment, the management of the freight, we use these indicators, there is an automated flux of information, then it's, that's it.
Rony, that's very interesting, because when you see something ready already, it seems to be very simple, but before seeing it ready, how do you come up with these ideas? What was the process like? How would you design this project? I really would like to share. How was the process of designing New Fleet?
Well, the Newton, the Apple story, it's something very similar. Were you sitting under the apple tree and the tree fell on your head? So I think it would be this image. When we talk about Newton, yes, he was dozing off under the apple tree, and the apple fell and they found gravity. But actually, what happens is that Newton had a lot of technical knowledge of physics, so he observed an event that happened repeatedly. Things fell all the time. Okay, there is a physical law here. So what we do is exactly that. We have special knowledge, we are experts in technology applied to the freight, safety, innovation, and then we start observing, making observations. What is going on? What is going on that constantly happens that causes pain to our customers? When we have a foundation then of so many customers on the world, transportation of 1.3 million vehicles which are monitored, so it's a great base, not only freights, but freights managers. So we are observing what are they doing and what are the main pains that they have. So we managed to get, for example, in this case of the innovation of the trails, we identified that one of the pains was put into practice this system. It was how to use the tool. So when we have turnover, the client turnover, we cannot rely on a specific training for one member of staff. So the great gain is to observe closely, pay attention to the customers and how they are living in their main pains. And from this moment, we bring the idea. So before people think that consulting was, being sitting there waiting for the customer, that's to ask, he's an expert in their activities, but we are the experts in the solution to bring to them. So we cannot wait. We have to be more proactive. So the grower who is there, looks on the apple tree, for examul, they have their knowledge. So our biggest challenge is with our technological look. We have to help them solve their problems.
So very nice, Rony. That's very nice to see how Trimble is very focused on the client's pain points and innovation from them. So we are, almost halfway through our program. And we still have Clóvis de Barros' presentation that is going to be very interesting, and from Ellen McLachlan talk. It's very complicated to mention her name, right? To pronounce her name, Ellen McLachlan. So how do you call her? Ellen. Ellen is going to be here with us in a minute. So we're going to have a 5-minute break. So it's going to be very interesting. So just go ahead and have some water and come back. Don't miss us. So In.Coming 2021. We shall be back in a minute.
nós estamos de
So
volta,
we are
senhoras e
back,
senhores. É o
everyone.
Incoming
So this is the
2021
Incoming
que começou a todo vapor
2021 that
nessa
we have just
segunda-feira, esse
started
evento
this
trazendo muito
Monday
conteúdo,
morning, bringing a lot
muita
of content, a
informação.
lot
Eu
of
estou aqui com o Rony, que
information.
vai
So I'm
participar
right
de mais
here with
uma
Rony that is
sabatina
going to
de perguntas e
participate in
respostas.
questions
Ele não
and
foge de
answers.
nenhuma pergunta que eu
And
faço
he is
aqui.
here
Ele
just to
sempre
answer all
traz
of
a
them.
explicação
He's
para a
always
gente poder
bringing the
entender
right explanation
cada
so that we are
detalhe
able to
dessas novas
understand each
tecnologias
detail of
que vem
each
pela
technology
frente.
that we're
Olha
bringing
só,
to you
nessa
today.
manhã nós já
This
tivemos
morning,
palestrantes
we had,
incríveis, conhecemos
amazing
sobre o
lectures.
pensamento futurista do Peter.
We got to know
Tivemos a
Peter with the
oportunidade de ficar
futurist
por dentro do
thinking, so
futuro do
we got to know
transporte da
about the future of
Trimble
transportation
com o
with Trimble, with James Langley.
E ainda
And we
conhecemos dois
also
lançamentos
got to know
inovadores
two
da
innovative
Trimble que
launches from
atuam
Trimble
com a inteligência
that
artificial
really work with
para
artificial
trazer
intelligence to
segurança,
bring safety,
sustentabilidade
sustainability,
e
and
eficiência ao
efficiency
transporte.
to
Tudo isso
transportation.
foi só a primeira
So
parte
this
do
is just the
Incoming
first
2021,
part
tá
of
vendo,
Incoming
né? Ainda hoje
2021.
teremos o professor
Today we're going to have Clóvis de
Filho
Barros,
e a
Professor
vice-presidente da Trimble,
Clóvis de
que o
Barros
pessoal
Filhos, and the
chama de
Vice
Ellen.
President of
O
Trimble,
sobrenome
Ellen.
dela é difícil de dizer, ó,
So
McLachlan.
Ellen
Agora já deu
McLachlan
certo, tá vendo? Por isso você deve
is her
continuar
last name. And
conectado
that's
com a
why you
gente.
have to continue
Tá sendo
connected
uma
with
experiência
us.
fantástica
It's
conhecer
been
como
a very
Trimble
interesting
utiliza
experience
tecnologia
how
de
Trimble
ponta
uses a
para
cutting-edge
entregar
technology to
segurança e
deliver
eficiência nas
safety and
estradas.
efficiency on the
Eu vou
road.
convidar agora,
I
de
am
novo,
going to
o Rony,
invite
que já está aqui
Rony
preparado pra gente
back
conversar
to
sobre
talk about
mais uma
another
utilização
innovative
inovadora da
use of
tecnologia com
technology with
análise de
big data analysis. Rony,
primeiro,
first,
conta pra gente
tell
aqui,
us a
como
little
vocês
bit more
aplicam
about
isso no
the
software
big
de
data
gestão.
and this management
Bom,
software.
eu vou introduzir o que é o Big Data.
Well,
né?
while you introduce what big
comentei ali
data
dos
is, I mentioned
50 milhões
that we have
de informações
50
para 100
million
veículos.
information, for
Agora
example,
você
for
imagina
vehicles.
isso para 1 milhão e
So
300,
guess that for
que é a nossa frota
1
hoje.
million,
Então, quando a
more
gente
than 1
fala de
million,
Big Data, como
300.
que você
So when we talk
analisa
about big data is
muita
how we
informação, uma
analyze
base de
a
informação
lot of
imensa
information,
numa
a
velocidade
huge amount of
absurda. Então,
information
acho
in a
que
ridiculous
esse é o
speed.
conceito ali
So
do,
that's the
do Big Data.
concept of big data.
E
Como é que vocês aplicam?
How do
E
you
daí
apply
eu
this
vou
big data? So
citar
now I'm
exemplo
going to give
recente
you a
nosso que
very
foi
new
sugestões
example. So
na ferramenta de
suggestions
rotograma.
that
Rotograma é
rotogram
mapa
vehicle.
de
So it's a
viagem que a
mapping
empresa monta.
trip in that
Então, ele tem o
the
roteiro que o
company
motorista deve
puts. There
seguir
is
e
the route
informações de
that
alerta
the
de velocidade
driver
por
should
trecho
be,
que ele
and the
deve
alerts, the warning
deve
of
estar
speed
atento,
control.
qual que é a velocidade segura naquele
What
trecho,
is the safe
regiões
speed
críticas,
in
regiões
critical
perigosas que ele
areas,
precisa
more
redobrar
dangerous
atenção,
areas that they
enfim,
need to be more cautious?
isso é o rotograma.
So this is the
E o
rotogram.
que a gente fez
And what we
foi
did was
identificar, pensando naquele
identify,
processo
thinking
de
that the
inovação, né?
process of innovation, for
Para
instance,
ter uma ideia, sabe como as
in order
empresas
for you to
montam
have an idea, you
rotograma
know
hoje?
how companies
especialista
build
em
the
segurança,
rotogram. They
coloca
get a
dentro do carro,
specialist in
ele
safety,
vai
put into the
viajando,
car, and they
fazendo
travel together with the
anotações de
driver,
qual
making
região é
notes, what
perigosa,
areas are
e daí
dangerous.
ele faz
And
algumas
after
simulações numa
that,
curva,
they
por
make some
exemplo, para ver
simulations
como que o
in
veículo
curves
se
to
comporta
see
naquela
how the
curva,
vehicle
para
behaves in
definir
that
uma
curve
velocidade segura
in
para
order
aquele
to
trecho.
define a safe speed. But this technology, sorry to interrupt you, that's a technology from the 70s, the 80s, 2020. I think the companies are still doing that. We have some resources in order to enable the apps in order to record, but the base is the foundation was the same. Guess doing this in continental countries such as Brazil, Mexico, with very poor roads. It's very complex. It's a ridiculous effort that you have to make. As we observe, say, there should be an easier way to solve this problem. And one of the solutions that we found was big data analysis. We try to simplify that to you. Guess that a vehicle is going through a curve, and then, for example, it's at 62 kilometers per hour, and that was kind of discomfortable. But you have hundreds of vehicles going through the same place at 50 per hour. And it's okay for those vehicles. It doesn't show any instability. So that we can presume that at 55 kilometers per hour is safe. Up to 55 vehicles don't have any unstable movement, so we managed to calculate the linear, the threshold. A simple way is this application of big data that we brought in our suggestions for the rotogram platform. It's an additional to the intelligence. It's a mode that we have that it's connected with the V-Fleet and to other resources, automated workflow, power bias, and it connects some tools with big data resources within the V-Fleet.
So then you save time, resources, energy. And what is the direct impact on traffic safety?
Well, we believe that it's a direct impact and a question that normally people ask. But if the driver follows the traffic signs within the limit, speed limit, does it help? Yeah, it does. Yeah, obviously follow the signs because it's a representative speed limit. But the problem is that this speed is not very precise. It's not very accurate and it's stable. It was defined decades ago when they built the roads. It's not something that you say updating the traffic signs annually. So that shows a picture. It's still not today's picture. It could be a picture because the roads have been duplicated. It changes because we have a hole that we didn't have before. We had problems in the conservation of the roads. So we believe that this analysis, dynamic analysis of what is happening in practice, the look of this tool really brings us more safety, and the last contribution is people think that, wow, but I'll have to invest money with safety. Well, safety and productivity, they walk together, hand in hand. So we know how important performance is to a threat of carriers. So an example, when we talk about safety, the analysis of safety, they look at the more pondering and cautious analysis. So the example I gave of the curve, at 62 per hour, the truck was having oscillation. So what will the analytic do? He will say, okay, 40, he will try with 40 to avoid accidents. So we have a great amount of vehicles, and understanding that, we know that at that place, the truck can reach the speed of 55, so it's a minimized risks.
And this is a new subject, right? So it's very good to know that there are companies that are committed to safety in this way. It makes us even more comfortable to hit the road. But we also need to remember everyone's responsibility. So we have, so far we have talked a lot about the future, but to impact that future, we need to respond to the changes of today. Sometimes we don't realize it, but access to information has brought us many changes. As its availability increases, more proposals for the future happens. And to talk about this topic, I am going to invite Elaine McLaren, Sector Vice President at Trimble Mobility. She has experience as director, strategist, and business development.
Solta a vinhetinha aí. Vinhetinha para a gente receber a Ela. Hi, Elwin. Can you hear me?
Você pode me ouvir, Elwin?
Good morning. Can you hear me?
It's a pleasure to have you here. I heard that you think the internet was the most impactful invention. Now, how do you perceive that this is the high disponibility? This high disponibility of information brings changes. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Well, good morning, and first of all, thank you for inviting me to be with you this morning. It is very exciting to be here with you. I think I grew up, I'm afraid I'm going to age myself here, but I grew up before the internet, and so when I think back to the teenager I was and the teenagers of today and the access they have to information, I think the change we've been through as a society is quite incredible. And I think it's an incredibly empowering change as well, right? When you think about the business context, when you talk about the supply chain challenges that we are going through today, I cannot imagine how we would be how we would be having these kinds of conversations without the enabling power of the internet. So thanks, Rafa and Ronnie, for your introduction there. I have just a few minutes with you this morning, so I will dive in. As Rafa said, my name is Elwyn McLaughlin. I am the Vice President for the Mobility business at Trimble. I am a 25-year Trimble veteran. I've been with the company for 25 years in a number of different divisions, construction and geospatial, before joining transportation. And my career history is in product development. I'm coming to you this morning from my home in Colorado, where the weather has changed. Winter is coming, and soon the ski resorts will be open. So I hope this year for a less COVID impacted and more normal ski season, and perhaps some of you will be able to come out and ski at some point. So I have prepared a few slides, a few talking points this morning about the global changes, the impact of Trimble and the supply chain challenges on a global basis. I hope you'll find it interesting. So as I am sure you all know, the world is facing unprecedented supply chain disruption. The photographs on the screen here, I think, are pretty mind-blowing. They're certainly very remarkable. And what they show is the port congestion that is currently going on. So on the left, all of the containers stacked up at the ports waiting to be unloaded and taken away. And on the right-hand side, an image of, at some point in recent weeks, over 50 container ships waiting to be unloaded at the port of Long Beach in Los Angeles. The supply chain challenges that we are facing are a perfect storm between the impacts of COVID, the lockdowns and shutdowns that have happened around the world, as well as the factories shutting down, the ports losing staff, and also this increase in demand that we have seen, whether because of the government stimulus that has happened in different countries, or because of people being at home and looking for to buy goods and services that make their lives a little more easy and comfortable at home more of the time. We have this incredible demand situation happening at the moment. And so between the supply constraints and the transportation constraints and the demand, the increase in demand, we have this perfect storm in the supply chain industry. Our belief is that companies that have invested in technology, invested in their digital transformation, are better prepared to react. And we know this, and we saw this when the pandemic first started, here in the US at least, in March or April last year, when we started to have offices shutting down and businesses shutting down, and this real shift to people being at home more of the time. There was a real shift in the way people purchase things. And you know it because you were part of it as well, right? We had to set up home offices and buy equipment to do that. We weren't going to IKEA, we weren't going to stores to make those purchases. We were doing it online, and we needed those things delivered to our houses. And that meant a huge shift in the supply networks. So previously, where networks were optimized for delivering goods to stores, suddenly there was a real shift to e-commerce, and that has a ripple effect on the design of the supply network. Companies that had tools in place could reconfigure their network in real time or near real time. They could reroute trucks, they could reroute inventory to where it needed to be in order to meet this shift in supply. As a result of that, many retailers and manufacturers who were dealing with these shifts in their buying patterns had to find and contract rapidly with new carriers. They had to find new trucking companies to haul their goods to places they hadn't had to haul them previously. Again, if you think about the fact that their supply chains were fairly baked in, they were fairly settled, and they had distribution centers that serviced retail outlets, and now they had to adjust to this new way of buying, which required new lanes, new shipping lanes that they had to service. And then importantly and critically, they also had to hire, onboard, and train new drivers. We have seen and continue to see a real shift in employment, in jobs, in the job market in the last 18 months. And some of that shift has taken drivers away from their current job of driving and made other jobs more attractive to them. Or with COVID, people have dropped out of the workforce, or they want to be closer to family during this really challenging time. And all of that has meant that in an already at least here in North America and in Europe, a challenged driver market that compounded that problem, and the driver market became even tighter. So companies that had tools and systems to do analysis and to run prediction algorithms and to identify how and where to go to hire drivers and to quickly onboard them and bring them up to speed have fared better during this challenging supply chain crisis. Trimble as a company is a global company. We have a global footprint, and our customers are also global in scope. On the screen here are just a handful of logos. Hopefully you recognize many of them, but this is a small snapshot of some of the companies that Trimble serves, our customers, who have global footprints, who operate on global scale. And what we hear from our customers is increasingly they want to standardize their operations. They want to simplify and standardize across their global operations. And they also want to leverage their purchasing power, right? They want to negotiate with vendors like Trimble at a broader scale. And so these customers, they call us and they say, I want to know how you can serve me globally, how you can serve my businesses in Latin America and Europe and in North America with one solution, one technology stack that is easier for me to run analysis and reports on, and to see how I'm doing in a dashboard or on real time across my global operation. So how is Trimble responding to that? James spoke a little earlier about the Trimble Transportation Cloud and our platform strategy to serve the industry. He talked about how it was bringing together shippers and carriers to remove inefficiencies out of the supply chain, to share data, to make the system work more smoothly, and to eliminate waste in the supply chain. I want to talk about the Trimble Transportation Cloud as a global strategy. And so let me build up from the bottom here. As we talked about, our strategy, our investment is to build this Trimble Transportation Cloud platform, which you can think of as a tech stack, a technology stack on which we build our solutions. So coming up from the bottom, how we do that is in building out core capabilities and common workflows. So wherever you are in the world in this supply chain, you're worrying about tendering and procuring freight. You're worried about resource planning, whether it's, do I have enough trucks? Do I have enough drivers? What drivers should I assign to what loads, to what trucks? It's about safety. Wherever you are in the world, safety is a common problem. Is the driver speeding? Is there an accident that needs to be investigated? Those are core common problems that are the same everywhere in the world. We talk about truck maintenance, driver management, settlement and payment workflows. These are core capabilities that we are building into our Trimble Transportation Cloud platform. But critically, on top of that, in the reddish bar that we have here, we are fully aware that these solutions need to be regionalized and localized. That everything is not the same on a global scale. So we need to make sure that we are building out and adjusting those for local requirements. So whether it's taxes, whether it's simple things like language support and units of measure. Here in the US, as you know, we use miles instead of kilometers and other strange metrics, different types of units of measure. But things like driver recruiting and the way drivers are recruited in Latin America is different from how it is in North America. Regulatory compliance, the government regulations that we have to live with are different in different parts of the world. So our Trimble Transportation Cloud platform allows for this localization of solutions to meet local business requirements and norms. But on top of that, again, how we do that with industry-specific workflows. So when you think about the different carriers that we serve, the different types of companies that we do business with, there are different needs for a fuel hauling operation in the processes they use and some of the forms they need to complete, versus food and beverage delivery and the workflows that those industries require. So our strategy at the Trimble Transportation Cloud level is to allow a high level of configuration, both out of the box, the things that we build out that we know are needed by the industry with the large presence that we have, but also allows for a high level of configuration, whether it's configuration in the different parts of our business around the world with the capable and experienced folks we have in Brazil and in Mexico and in the US and Canada and in France and Germany and so on, or whether it's the customers themselves saying, yes, I'm a bulk tank operation and I have to do the things that bulk tank operations have to do in North America, but I also have my own special sauce, my own flavor, that my company, the way we like to do things. And so that ability to build out those forms or that workflow or to collect that important data and pull it back in for reporting and analysis is a key part of how we are building out the Trimble Transportation Cloud platform to allow a large amount of flexibility and configurability, regardless of whether it's a local, regional requirement or an industry-specific workflow. And how do we achieve that? Well, Trimble Transportation is a global business. We have staff, personnel, people all around the world. Some of the graphs up here showing, some of the statistics on the screen here showing some of the personnel we have in different parts of the world, but really trying to illustrate that, that we have a global scope, that we have personnel and businesses in Latin America, North America, Europe, India and Australia, really giving a great coverage around the world. And we're collecting in all of those industry requirements and looking and understanding how is it the same in different parts of the world and how is it different, and how do we need to make sure that we build solutions that can both leverage the commonalities and the common workflows and capabilities, but at the same time allow for that local customization to meet local business needs. And that's all I have this morning. It was great to get to spend a little time with you, and I'm really enjoying the presentation and the launch, and I'll hand it back to you, Rafa.
Oh, thank you very much,
Rafa.
I appreciate your time.
Muito obrigada.
Your information are so helpful for all of us. Thank you very much. E nós continuamos aqui, senhoras
We're
e
going
senhores,
to
do
carry
Brasil,
on,
no
ladies
nosso
and
evento
gentlemen from Brazil,
internacional.
of our
Que bom que você
international
tá aqui.
event.
Quero te
It's
fazer uma
great
pergunta.
that
Você já
you're
deixou
here. I
a
want to
sua
ask you a
curtida
question.
aí
Did
nas
you
redes
like,
sociais
did you
da
give it a
Trimble,
like on our
aqui no canal do
Trimble
YouTube? É importante
social
que você
media?
deixe a sua
It's
curtida,
very important
o
here
seu
on
comentário.
YouTube that you
Tem
make a
toda uma
comment
equipe
that you
técnica,
like.
falando em
There is a
tecnologia, tem
technical
toda uma
team
equipe
behind
técnica
this
trabalhando
because
nos
we're talking
bastidores
about
para que
technology.
esse evento
There is a huge
chegue
team
até
here
você,
working
para
so
que
that
essas
this
informações
event
cheguem até
comes to
você.
you.
Já já
This
nós
information
vamos
comes
receber o
to
nosso
you.
último
We
convidado
will
da
be
manhã, o Clóvis
receiving
já está
our
se
last
posicionando aqui para
invitee.
começar a sua
Clovis
apresentação.
is
Mas
getting
antes
ready
disso,
to
eu quero
start
convidar
his
você
presentation. But
também
before, I'd
para
like to
seguir a
invite you
Trimble
to
nas redes
follow
sociais,
Trimble,
para você curtir
its
a
social
Trimble
media, to
Transportation
like
lá no
Trimble
Instagram,
Transportation on
sempre recebendo
Instagram,
informações. Daqui a
always
pouco, no final
getting
desse
new
evento, eu
information.
vou
At the
trazer
end of the
informação de
event, I'll
outro
bring
evento
information
super
about
especial, e se eu
another very
fosse você,
special
eu
event. If
anotaria
I
na
were
agenda,
you, I
desmarcaria
would,
outros compromissos,
block your
porque o próximo
diary
evento é um
and
evento que você
make room for
também
this one,
não pode
because it's
perder.
an
O pessoal
event
já
that
está
you
trabalhando na
won't
produção
be able to
dessa
miss.
incrível,
People
desse
are
incrível
working on this incredible
evento. Bora
event that
lá?
will be happening in the near
As
future.
mudanças,
So
elas não afetam
changes,
somente
they
o
don't only
coletivo, a
affect the
nossa vida
collective or
profissional.
professional
Elas também
life,
têm
they
impacto
also have an
nosso
impact on our individual
E
life.
como você
And
tem
how have you
lidado
been
com as
dealing with
mudanças?
these
Já parou pra pensar
changes?
ou não?
Have you stopped
Coisas
to
e
think about
pessoas
that?
que a cada
Things and
milésimo
people
de
that after a
segundo deixam de
millisecond
ser
stop
quem são
being
e
who
se
they
tornam
are and become
outras.
something else or someone
Crises que
else.
transformam a
Crises
maneira
that
com a
transform
qual
the
nos
way we
relacionamos
relate
com
to
o
the
mundo.
world.
Viver
To
é
live
mudar,
is to
reconstruir,
change, to rebuild,
reinventar.
to reinvent.
E para falar sobre
And in order to
todas
talk
essas
about all
questões,
these
nós vamos
issues,
trazer o nosso próximo
we're going to
convidado,
bring our
o
next
Clóvis
Clovis
de
de
Barros
Barros
Filho,
Filho,
que é
who
doutor e
holds a
livre docente pela Escola de
PhD
Comunicações
and
e
is a
Artes da
lecturer
USP.
in the School
Também é
of
palestrante
Communication
há mais
Arts
de
at
10
USP.
anos
He has been
no
a
mundo
speaker and
corporativo,
more for more than 10 years,
consultor
and
e
he's
é
in the
autor.
corporate
Antes de eu
world, and he's a
trazer o
consultant and
Clóvis
an
aqui, eu vou
author.
chamar a vinhetinha
Before
do Clóvis. Solta a
Clovis, I
vinhetinha
will
aí.
show the vignette for Clovis here.
Muito bom dia, Clóvis.
Good morning,
Você me
Clovis.
ouve
Can you
alto e
hear
claro?
me Can you hear me clearly?
Nossa, te ouço muito bem. E você, me ouve
Clearly,
bem?
say, yeah, can you hear me? Yes, I do. Very nice to have you here. So now the stage is yours. We are all looking forward to hear about your experiences, the information that you have to share with us this morning.
Prazer é todo meu, muito obrigado.
It's a great pleasure. Thank you for having me here. Good morning, everybody. I'm very happy, really, to be here to participate of this event.
E sobretudo para
And
tratar
above all,
desse
to
tema
treat about
tão
this topic
especial
that is very
e
special to me.
tão atual,
And
que
it's
é
very
a questão
new, you
da
know, it's our
mudança.
current times, and it's
Evidentemente
changes.
que
It's part of our lives.
as coisas
And
do mundo
obviously
e
things in
talvez
the world, or
também as coisas
maybe
do universo,
and
elas
universe,
nunca pararam
they
de
never
mudar.
actually stopped
E
changing.
a informação de que a Terra
And the
se desloca em
information
torno
that
do
the
Sol
Earth
numa velocidade
moves around the sun
espantosa
as a
é uma informação que nos
ridiculous
choca porque
speed.
temos
It
a impressão
shocks
de
us
que o
because we
chão
have the
está ali
impression that the
sempre
ground
parado
is
para
stable.
nós
It's
pisarmos,
still for
mas
us to
porque não
step on
temos uma
it.
referência
Because we don't
exterior à
have a
Terra,
reference
temos
different
essa
from that.
impressão
We have this
de que a Terra
impression
está
that
sempre
the
quieta,
world, the
mas no final
planet is
das
still,
contas,
but at the
ela
end of the day,
viaja no
it
universo a
travels
uma
at
velocidade absurda,
very
como
high
de
speed,
resto
unimaginary
todos os
speed,
demais astros,
as all
planetas,
the other
estrelas,
stars
etc.
and planets,
Pois muito bem,
etc.
a questão da mudança é inseparável da
Changing is
questão da
not
nossa
separate from
percepção.
our
E aí a
perception.
nossa percepção
And
indica
our
que o mundo
perception
nunca
shows that
tenha
the
mudado
world
tão rápido
maybe has
como
never
agora.
changed as
Talvez
fast as now.
porque
Maybe because
tenhamos muito mais gente no mundo
we have
agora
more
do que
people in
antes.
the world, living in
Talvez
the world
porque a nossa
before. Maybe because our
capacidade de flagrar o
capacity
mundo pelas
to
técnicas tem
see the
aumentado
worlds and
muito.
portray
O
the
certo
worlds with
é
different techniques
que
is
só não vê quem
different.
não quer. O mundo
You don't
muda
see.
a cada
You don't see if
segundo.
you don't want to. The
E,
world is changing
naturalmente,
every
isso
second,
deve nos
and
trazer
naturally that
alguma
should bring
inquietação.
us some
Inquietação
restlessness.
porque quando dominamos
So we
as
become
soluções
restless because when we
adequadas
dominate
para
the
os problemas
solutions
que
for
já
the problems
conhecemos,
that we
nos
already know,
sentimos
we
confortáveis,
feel
nos
comfortable,
sentimos seguros.
we feel
Mas
safe.
quando percebemos
But
que
when we notice
problema
that
novo,
there is a new
inédito,
problem,
é problema para o qual não
it's a
temos
problem
ainda uma
for the
solução
one we don't
adequada,
have a
isso
solution
nos
yet.
coloca em
It causes
sobressalto,
us in
em
a
alerta.
state
Não
of
temos a
alert.
certeza
We don't
de
have
encontrar
any
no
certainty
momento certo
that we
a melhor
arrive at the
solução
right time,
para
the
aquele
best
problema
solution to that
inédito,
problem,
aquele problema
which
que
is
acaba de
unexpected,
aparecer,
that
e que na
has
semana
just
passada
surged,
era
and last year was unimaginable.
impensável.
We wouldn't
Pois
think
muito bem,
about that before. Well,
no meio de toda essa
in the
mudança
midst
e
of
essa
all these
transformação,
changes and transformation,
pedaço dela é
a bit
decidido
of
por
it
nós.
is decided by us.
Definido por
It's
nós,
defined by us.
Pensado,
It's
deliberado,
thought and
arregaçamos as
deliberate.
mangas
We
e
roll
fazemos
up these
acontecer.
sleeves and we make it happen.
No meio de
And
tudo isso,
in the middle of all this,
aquela disposição
there
que
will
temos
be the willingness
para
that
pensar
we
como
have
nunca
in order
tínhamos
to
pensado
think
antes,
as we had never thought before,
agir como nunca
and
tínhamos
act
agido
as
antes,
we had never done before,
proporcionar a nós mesmos
and also
sensações
enables
que nunca
us
tínhamos
feelings
tido
that we had
antes.
never
E é
experienced
claro,
before.
essa
And
disposição
obviously,
para
this
fazer
willingness to
diferente
do things
condição
differently,
para a
it's a
resolução de
condition
problemas
in order
que
to
antes
resolve
nos
problems
pareciam
that before would be
completamente
unimaginable,
impensáveis, porque são inéditos,
because
são
they are
novos,
new. They
problemas para os
have
quais
just
não temos
emerged.
uma solução
These are
adequada
problems
e
for
por isso
which we
isso
don't
nos
have
coloca
any
em estado de
adequate
alerta
solution.
ante a necessidade
So,
de pensar
causing
para
us to be in a
resolver
state of
o que antes,
alert in order to try to find a solution
não seria
to
cogitável.
something that we would never
te diria
imagine
que
before. I
isso
would
é
say that this
particularmente
is
notório
especially
para aquelas
notorious
pessoas que
for
algum
those
dia
people
foram
who
aplaudidas,
someday
pessoas que
were
algum dia mereceram
received an
reconhecimento,
ovation and were
pessoas que foram
recognized,
consideradas
people who were
pessoas
considered
vitoriosas, e
winners.
essas pessoas um dia
And these
acreditaram
people,
que
a
elas
day,
eram
believed that they
vitoriosas,
were the
porque
winners,
eram elas.
because
Elas
they were the ones,
fosse qual fosse a situação,
no
elas
matter what the situation was,
encontrariam uma
they
solução
would find a
adequada.
solution,
Pelo
an
fato de
easy
serem
solution, an
elas,
adequate solution to
dariam
that.
So
they
jeito
would
naquele problema,
find a way
e
to
é
that problem,
exatamente
find a
essa
way out.
postura diante do
And
mundo que
this
pode
this
levar
way they
a
act,
situações
what took us to situations that we were, losing, okay, and being a failure. So let's say that you were a world champion as a football coach, for instance, the World Cup, and then he is invited to lead that team again, but, play in their own country. This coach, he decided to invite technical assistants and all the champions. So the way we do here, we have two coaches, two winners from different parts of the world, and they have in their hands some of the most well-paid players in the world, and they put a team together to play at home the World Cup. Yes, we suppose that it would be easy in order to put this team together. And this is reinforced by the fact that a year before, in the Confederation World Cup, that would be like an appetizer for the World Cup. That wouldn't be easy to choose and select your players. So everything leads us to think it's a bureaucratic situation, that we will simply, smash our adversary easily. So, well, and this team is the protagonist of a failure in the World Cup. And then you stop thinking, but how did it happen? How is it possible that two leaders of the world, two excellent and experienced coaches, winners, united together, they have extraordinary players in their hands. How could they fail so deeply? How could that happen? And such a failure at home. For example, 7-0, something that you had never seen before, not even in regional championships. So 7 scored goals. It's very rare. How can this happen? It's unimaginable, even in football, even in plays and games. So we see the repetition of solutions that when they were good is not enough to solve the current problems. So we should not be repeating ourselves. So every time we have a new problem, this I could consider this is our adversary, our opponent. It's more competent, it's different, it's stronger, so we cannot use the same strategies that we used before in order to deal with this problem. We have other players, another opponent that represents for this team a completely different problem, for which the solution that worked in the past will no longer serve. It's no longer convenient. Well, with this analogy, we can think that in companies that someday were leaders, worldwide leaders in their segments. If you imagine Pan American Airlines, for example, they were leaders, the biggest airline companies in history. What happened to this American company? They dominated the internal market. The United States was for 30–40% of these airline companies in the world. So how can you envisage a company like this just vanishing into the air? How can they fail? How can they go bankrupt? How can they cease to exist? And then you start looking at maybe many times non-adapting to new realities can represent a failure. So be willing to do differently, even though we someday were winners, requires humility that many people don't have. It's easy after having been a winner and recognized all over the world to believe that if you repeat what you have always done, we will always be the winner. It's really normal to think that way. But although it may sound normal, it's not. It's not adequate. If you imagine that during 35 years, I had students ahead of me, and during 15 years, I was giving talks in theaters with collaborators and service providers in front of me, sitting in front of me comfortably, and I was speaking, on the stage with them here, seeing them face to face. Well, and now a new reality came to surprise us, where meetings, agglomerate is no longer possible. So we need to adapt our talks and make it work in a completely different scenario. Is, for example, talking to a tool here, a camera, which will be recording the sound and the image, and the talk needs to flow with the same relevance that it was doing before. So it's important to be willing, to be always willing to review our practices, to review the way we see, the way we think, to meet the needs and to find solutions for problems that are coming in different conditions that are faster and faster. Well, this is part of a life that depends on us doing. It will point us to the other part that we cannot control. So the weather forecast, we cannot control. It changes quickly, it changes fast, it surprises us, but it's an example of the thing that we cannot control. In our relation here, what I say here, it's a part of life that I can control. Everything I say, I chose to say, I decided to say, I choose the words, the examples I give, but you liking what I'm saying, it's beyond my control. I can't control that. So because whether you like, it depends on the expectation you have, it depends on what you believe, your repertoire, and all the variables that I cannot control. So this is why here what I say, it depends on me. You enjoying what I'm saying, it doesn't depend on me. The reason for which all the changes that are happening in the world, we have to worry, especially with the changes that we can control, that we can decide and make happen. So the changes that depend specifically on us. But now, obviously, within these changes which depend on us, that we say innovation, not everything is good. It's not because you were doing differently from what you did before that you were doing better. It could be suggested, but not the best. The fact that you have to find solutions and think about doing something that you have never done before doesn't mean that you will be doing it properly. It's not a guarantee that you will be doing better, that you will find the right solution to a problem. So that's why it's important to think that the new is not only good. So in the word innovation, you have the new and the action. Okay, the action is what you deliberately think, and the new is something that is new. We hadn't seen that before, for example, and it's not a guarantee of quality. Anything which is new, it doesn't mean that it's not necessarily worse than we had before. And that's why we have to think about the positive value of the new conditions, of the value of this innovation and transformation, which is deliberately done by us, because not all innovation will be adequate to our life and reality. And we have to think about innovation in this way. It's there to serve us and not otherwise. I would say that the positive side of innovation is the preservation of our liberty and autonomy. All innovation that tied us and prevents us to be more independent, to think and reflect. I think it's an innovation that is not convenient for us and not good for us. It's like a paradox, all the innovations that holds us back and chains us is not a positive one.
podemos manter distância e
we
até
should
desconfiar,
keep
né?
distance
Porque no
and
final
be
das
suspicious
contas
about,
não
because
fomos
at the
feitos
end of
para
the
a
day,
escravidão,
we were
não
not
fomos
made
feitos
for
para a
slavery, to be
subserviência,
slaves
não fomos
and
feitos para a
serve
submissão, fomos
the
feitos
innovation.
para a
We were
autonomia, a
done to
liberdade
be
e a soberania.
free
Por isso, que
and to be
seja uma
sovereign.
inovação preservadora,
And so
né,
the
da
innovation
nossa
which
soberania,
will
da
preserve this
nossa
independence and
autonomia
this
e da
freedom
nossa
that we
inteligência
have
livre,
of
né,
our
da nossa
intelligence, which
inteligência
is
livre.
free
Por isso,
to
eis aí
think
o
and make decisions.
primeiro
So
critério
this
que me
is the
parece
first
fundamental.
criteria
Muitas
that
vezes
to me
as inovações
is
são
very
apresentadas
important. I
como
think innovations
verdadeiras
are
jaulas
shown
ou
as,
gaiolas que nos
cages
aprisionam.
that will
Discursos
imprison
como
us.
os que
Speeches
costumeiramente
such as
alguns
commonly are said
oferecem e propõem
and
como
offered.
Estamos na
We are
revolução
at the
15K
15K revolution W or whatsoever. So that's why you should, you must do this or that. So I think this is a speech that we should be suspicious about, because after all, it's putting us in a submissive position which is imposed on us. So we should not, stop believing in our own intelligence, in our ability to distinguish the right and wrong. So I think more innovations for freedom. And the second point, which is important to me when it comes to innovation, especially interpersonal relationship, the existential values that we should preserve, it's to be authentic.
Aquilo que sentimos e
The
pensamos.
ability to manage what we feel and what we think.
Entre o nosso interior e o nosso
And this is
exterior.
our inner self and our outer self.
Transparência pessoal.
To be authentic is personal. It's the possibility that we have in order to communicate what we feel and what we think.
E muitas vezes
and many times,
as condições materiais de vida
the material
nos obrigam
conditions force us to lie, chronically lie about what we feel, about what we say, about what we think. And we think about reorganizing to the new structures, to life in society, professional, forces us to lie about our convictions, our beliefs, our feelings, our ideas and opinions, and so on. If you ask me why a person is not authentic and what the opposite is, hypocrisy, a person is not authentic because in the search of their trophies and their rewards and what they believe to them, maybe they need to lie in order to reach their goals. And maybe many times they are punished by that. So we have to make sure that we have this space which is preserve the fact that we can be authentic. Why hypocrisy? Why this is inconvenient when we communicate to the world what we feel and what we think in a way which is not true? When we lie about ourselves, we condemn all the others who are related to us to live with someone who does not exist. We are creating a character, a fake character, in order to offer something which is not true to us. So we are missing the opportunity to know ourselves better, and we're condemning other people to this fake interaction, which can sound like, can be like a fraud. It's an illusion, it's deceiving, and obviously that's not going to end up well. Because if you are a hypocrite, and for each one of you that you interact with, you create a character, so obviously you will lead many different lives, but they are fake lives, but it's not you. It does not correspond to who you are and what you think and feel. So we defend innovation process in social organizations that will preserve some levels of authenticity. And we have to combat hypocrisy, especially the chronic hypocrisy, the certainty that we have to lie in order to survive. And that's very bad. and downgrading. It doesn't dignify human beings. And the third one, after talking about autonomy and being authentic, I'd like to talk about our essence, our inner nature, my inner self. And I'm appealing here to a few examples. Lionel Messi was born in Rosario. He could have gone working in an accounting office of his family. And obviously, he could be living here, working from 8 to 6, and resolving problems of their offices. Clients. But Lionel Messi decided to bet in his nature, you know, and what he is made of, considering who he is. It's easy for him to, you know, keep a ball next to him and lead this ball through the field in a very efficient way to score a goal. And being his nature is of a footballer, he could have thrown the ball into the bin, but no, he betted on it. And betting on his nature, obviously, Lionel Messi lived a life which is his own life. He used life as an opportunity in order to manifest who he really is, in the same way that João Carlos Martins could have worked in a bank, but he betted on music to understand that his nature is musical. João Carlos Martins became this example and the pride of our country. The great composer and maestro, great musician, someone who betted on himself. And obviously with these two examples we could think that how innovations that are respectable to our nature, which are respected and allowing us to live a life which is our own life. We don't need to be famous like they are. For example, myself, when I was at school, my father tried everything, and I was bad at everything at school. I didn't draw well, I didn't paint well, I didn't do really anything, I wouldn't play well. I was bad at everything at school. But 15 minutes before the test, my partners came to me to explain what they had not understood, and I acquired this fame. I was the great explainer. I could explain, the teacher was the teacher, and I would explain things. And it was so natural that some teachers say, oh, I mean, if you have any doubt, Clóvis will explain to you later. So it's interesting, right? I was really bad at everything, but there was something, my nature, my inner nature, which was able to pick a very complex speech and transform this in a very easy way for my classmates to understand. I think I had this ability, which was special, in transforming more complex things in simple things, transform geometry in a story, geography in a narrative which was pleasant for my peers to listen to, and make chemistry something nice and friendly. There was the ability. I was able to explain. I could have considered something silly. It would be nonsense, but it could be something of a child, you know, something which was not relevant. And I could have studied engineering or become an engineer. No, I decided to use this experience and this new discovery about myself as a reference for my life. And I became a speaker, a professional speaker, explaining things. Is it a teacher? Yes, maybe. I believe I have, along my life, honored my own nature. Know yourself. Give yourself the opportunity to live experience that allow you to identify your weaknesses and strengths and know yourself better. And it's welcome if you have the courage to use what you found out about yourself in your favor and live according to your own nature. So even the society does not appreciate that. what you have to offer and what your strength is. We know that in the case of, I knew how to explain things, and many people, they despise teachers and professors. See how much they pay for the work. Many societies physically assault teachers in classrooms. Many societies do not consider and legitimize the work of a teacher, but it's another problem. But if you don't have, for example, the initiative to bet in your own nature, you will always have to live despising what you do best. Many people along your life, your school, had less abilities to draw more, to paint and sing. And when they had to decide what they were going to do in their lives, they took another direction, forgetting what they knew best. Many times,
nós nos acovardamos
diante
de pressões sociais
when we face social pressures, and we
disqualify
disqualify our strength in the name of their own interests. Maybe you need to be brave enough to say, no, I like to explain things. Explain is my area, I know. I mean, this expression that the youth use, okay, this is my thing. I know how to do it. So bet what is your strength, what you know how to do. It's an innovative way of living. It's a new way of living. It's a brave way of living. The normal is that we succumb to pressures of our society, and then we always feel unchained by our salaries tied to the market needs of the society is applauding, to the society appreciates, and to have value, more value. So the normal is that we forgot our inner self, what we've done best. So this is a great innovation.
And this is where you have, your freedom. So innovation is a way of free yourself. In other words, ignoring everyone that is really willing to slave you on behalf of their own nature. And the fourth pillar, we talked about freedom, authenticity, essence or nature, and now we're moving to the fourth point. Always doing the best as you can. So the Greek ones, so they would call it excellence. Excellence. Excellence is really give your best. Is really doing as best as you can. Excellence has to do with a habit. It's not, punctual. It's not circumstantial. It's not rare. It's not exceptional. On the contrary, it's a habit. If excellence is not translated into habit, it's not excellence. So an excellent explanation is a person that is able to explain it from Monday to Friday, from Monday to Saturday. And the fact of being a habit, it's not just you're going to do it all the time. It means that you don't have to think before doing it. Just do it. And by habit, you do as best as you can. More or less when you drive a car after some time. So right at the beginning, you have to think how to change gears, how to pull the brakes, accelerate, and after some time, you drive automatically. Excellence is a habit when it becomes automatic. You don't know why, but you always do your best, the best as you can do. For sure, you're going to remember that friends from school that just the teacher, when the teacher arrived, they were in the first row just taking notes and doing their best at school. They were excellent students, excellent by habit. The contra of excellence is mediocrity. It's always a habit. And mediocrity comes from median. It's not 0. It's a 5th grade, so it's just doing, the least, just to make sure that you're going to pass. Mediocrity is really to being able to say that you're able to pass the same way the one who did 10, but in a mediocre way. And at school, it's a bad habit. It's the worst thing the school can promote. Because mediocrity, sculpted and forged at school, should really leverage the mediocrity at the workplace. We're going to get to know so many people that just do enough. They don't do their best, trying to avoid. And when they have like difficult situations and challenges, they disappear. They just come back when everything is fine. And we understand how these people really are present and orbiting in a poor way. So if you have an excellent worker, an excellent associate is the one who really opened the work door on Monday, and he is really doing his best, the best ever possible. Very often, people ask me to talk about something, and you just go there and then you talk about, for 15 minutes. Anything that you say is going to be good, people would like to listen, to hear you, so no problem. I can do that. I can do with this spirit. But so they can only tell me, you can get started. I am always in the upper limit of what I'm able to do, because it's a habit. Because I try to do my best. Probably Cesar Cielo, an excellent swimmer in Brazil, acquired the habit of swimming as best as he could. Likewise, Salvador Dali would have drawing and painting in an excellent way as a habit. It would be very hard for him just to do something without being an excellent professional. So if you are a mediocre, I think people are really looking forward to finish it so strong, and they are just checking the time, so they're going to be able to leave. So we call it the happy hour when the work finishes. And I really would like you to observe, as we are talking about change. So the expression happy hour is very bad for the work environment. Happy hour, every place you go, it's the time where the work finishes in a bar, and it's called the happy hour. And by habit, we convince ourselves that the happy hour is when the work finishes. This is when we are not working. So happiness and work, they don't come together, and this is an absurd. So it doesn't avoid you. So being happy without working. So rather work than really drinking in a bar. So it doesn't prevent you from doing whatever you want. So the expression happy hour, when you talk about change, this expression should be revisited, needs to be redressed for those who really work in organizations, so that we are going to be able to reach excellence. And I believe the excellence is the extraordinary excellence and fantastic transformation in the workplace. We would need to respect your own condition, which is the plenitude. There is no excellence without the soul plenitude, 200% focus on what you're doing. Right now, I cannot think about about my lunch, about my dinner, about my weekend, what I did in my weekend, when I'm going to have a holiday, when I'm going to retire. I cannot think about it. Why is that so? Because my mind is focused on this lecture. So there is nothing connected but what I am just delivering it to you. So there is the mind plenitude here. So this is Aristotle, 350 years before Christ, he would call the soul plenitude. So the soul. And then when you talk about it, we mean that what Americans would call it mindfulness. Mindfulness. So that would be the soul presence, 200% focus on what you're doing. What would be the opposite of that? The opposite of that, you know that. The opposite is really doing something, but thinking about something else. Doing two things and thinking about the third one. The opposite of that is your everyday life. Our everyday lives is a mind fragmenter. And on everyday life, you talk, we listen to music, we think where you're going, where you're moving. So in an everyday life, we have like 7 different worries simultaneously. So when you talk about mindfulness, so it really proposes an everyday rupture. So when you talk about everyday action, it's really regretful because the ideal thing would be like a rupture with your everyday life, up to reach your workplace. When you start working, it should be there. And so in everyday life, it's not like that. It's fragmented. And that's why an excellent transformation does require this training to reach this mindfulness, to be where you are, to be totally present where you are. I remember that when we had like the first wave of the pandemic, March and April last year, I've got a friend who is the monk, Cohen monk, and she said, have you checked the weather? And then I opened the shutters, and it's beautiful, the weather was beautiful. And what was the experience of opening the shutters? So the experience was very good. I just pulled, the cord, and then the shutters opened. And then I understood the lesson, the intention. I could have paid more attention to the act of opening the shutters, the contact with the hands, the way the world would be revealing itself to myself. And then it's clear that you realize in our everyday lives, so the immediateness of our life is really shortened by what it's going to be like, and we don't pay attention to what it is now, to the present, and to this mindfulness. And this is what we are talking about today, the possibility to be where you are, 200%. In such a way, concentrated on what you do, that anything that comes from outside is going to be set apart. There is no place in your mind. So people with high power of concentration, scientists, thinkers that are immersed in their reflection. So whatever happens around them, they will not be shaken by that. Why is that so? Because they are captured by the activity they are involved with. This is mindfulness, and this is another
mudar da vida
wonderful
no sentido
life
da sua eficácia
transformation
maior.
when you talk about efficacy.
Bem, meus amigos, como se não bastasse,
so,
aqui já caminhando para o
just
fim
moving
da
to the
minha
end of my
fala,
presentation,
nada impede que os movimentos de
so
transformação nos levem a mais humanidade. E a nossa humanidade, ela aparece com todo o seu colorido quando nos damos conta do valor de servir, estar a serviço de estender a mão.
When
Com
you're
600 mil
able, really,
óbitos
with
e
the
mais de 6 milhões de pessoas em
600,000
luto,
deaths
não é
and a lot
possível
of
que você não
people
tenha encontrado
grieving,
alguém
it's
que
not
precise de
possible that you
você.
don't find anyone
Ainda
that
no
would need
âmbito do
you.
trabalho,
So when you
é
talk about
perfeitamente
workplace,
possível que
it's
você
perfectly
perceba
possible
que
that
o
you
maior valor do
realize the
trabalho
biggest
não está
value
no
of
que
the
você
work is
recebe,
not what you
mas no que
receive,
você
but
oferece,
on what you
no que
offer,
você propõe,
what you
no que você
propose,
possibilita.
what you make it possible.
Foram 35 anos
35
lutando
years
pela lucidez dos meus alunos.
for really
35 anos
working with my
empenhado
students, 35
em
years
proporcionar
dedicated,
lucidez aos meus
really
alunos.
trying
E
to
sempre
bring
entendi que essa
understanding to
lucidez
my
valia
students,
muito
and I
mais
really
do que o que eu
understand
recebia
that this
pelo
enlightenment
trabalho.
would be
Assim como a vida
much
do
more
paciente
worth
vale
than
mais do
what
que o
we
que o
received,
médico
and
recebe por ela.
such
Assim também
as
como
the lives of the patient worth
sanidade
more than the
psíquica
salary the doctors receive.
vale
The
muito mais do que o psicólogo
sanity
recebe por
worth
ela.
much more than what
Por
the
essas e outras, o grande
psychologist
valor do
fees.
trabalho está
And
no bem
that's
que podemos
why,
proporcionar
the greatest value of work
e servir é
is
uma grande
related to
transformação.
what we can serve, the
Talvez tenhamos
transformation
sido
we can promote.
abilolados
Maybe we're
levados a
crazy
acreditar
enough to really believe
a vida boa tem a
that
ver com
the
o
good
nosso
life has
conforto.
to do with our comfort.
A vida boa tem a
So
ver
the
com
good
o
life has
nosso
to do
prazer.
with our
A vida
pleasure.
boa tem a
The
ver
good
com o
life
nosso
has to do with
reconhecimento.
our recognition.
A vida boa tem a
The
ver com
good
a
life
nossa
has to do with
celebridade.
our celebrity.
A vida boa tem
The
a ver
good
com
life
a
has to do
nossa
with
estética.
our aesthetics.
Talvez não tenhamos sido
Maybe
formados
we were
para
not, we haven't
pensar
received enough
que
information to think
proporcionar
that
tudo isso a quem quer que
to
seja
promote
é muito
such
legal
things
também.
is always very
E
nice
se você me
as well.
perguntar por que
And
que
if
é
you
legal,
ask me why is that
por que
nice,
é bom
why is it
melhorar a vida
good
de
to
alguém,
improve someone's lives,
é fácil
easy.
de argumentar.
It's easy to
É
argue
Jesus de
about
Nazaré
it.
que
So
argumentaria
Jesus
por
of
nós.
Nazareth would
Deus
be
criou
really
o mundo por
providing
amor.
this information. Jesus
quando você
created this
age
world
por
for
amor,
love, and when you act by
você
love,
age parecido
you
com o
act
que Deus
very similar
fez.
to what God
E quando
made.
você age parecido
So
com
when
o
you
que Deus
act
fez,
similarly to
você
God,
passa por um processo de elevação
you
espiritual,
go through
que é sempre muito
spiritual
bem-vindo.
leveraging, which
Você
is very welcome.
se eleva diante
You leverage
de uma
yourself
vida mesquinha, pequena,
in
egocentrada,
the middle of
pobre
a poor
e exclusivamente
and
dedicada
life exclusively
a
dedicated
confortos
to
de circunstância,
material comfort,
migalhas de bem-estar,
breadcrumbs
numa pobreza sem
in the
fim.
middle of an infinite
Bem, meus
poverty.
amigos, quanta transformação.
Well, my friends, we're talking
Quanta
about
mudança.
transformation,
Em nome
change.
da alegria,
On behalf of
a
joy,
alegria é a energia
joy
vital.
is the
A alegria
vital
é a
energy.
potência que sobe.
is the
A
potency
alegria
that
é o tesão
really
pela vida que aumenta.
brings
A alegria é a
passion
passagem
for
para um estado
life.
mais
It's
potente
a
e perfeito
passage
do próprio
to
ser.
the perfect
E
stage
naturalmente,
of the being.
a alegria
And
ela
naturally,
mesma
the
é uma
joy by
passagem
itself is
e, portanto,
a
uma
very
transformação.
important passage and a
Como
transformation
estamos
by
mudando
itself.
o tempo inteiro,
As we
a
are constantly
alegria é uma
changing,
forma
joy
positiva
is
de
a
mudança em
positive way
nós.
to change
Quando
in
saímos
ourselves.
de menor potência para
When
maior
we,
potência, quando estávamos borocochô,
when we were very
nos tornamos,
upset,
eufóricos,
and we become
radiantes,
very
brilhantes.
motivated, very happy.
Bem-vindo a tudo que nos alegra.
So welcome
Bem-vindo ao
everything
mundo
that
que nos põe para
comes,
cima.
bring us joy.
Bem-vindo ao mundo que nos transforma
Welcome
no
to
bom
the life that
sentido.
transforms us in a good
Bem-vindo a
sense.
todos aqueles que nos
Welcome
fazem
to
bem.
everyone that brings us
E quem nos
good.
faz bem
And
nos
whoever
dá
brings
mais
good
vida,
brings us more
aumenta
life,
nossa energia
increases our
para
energy
viver.
to live.
A alegria,
The joy,
passagem para um
the
estado mais potente
passage
e
to a
perfeito do
potent
próprio ser.
stage of
A
the
alegria é
being.
possível porque estamos no mundo,
The joy is
em
possible
relação com o
because in a
mundo, e há
world, in
muitos
a relation to this
alegradores.
world,
pessoas que nos fazem
people
bem,
that bring us joy,
pessoas que nos ajudam,
bring us
pessoas que nos
good, that
incentivam,
help us,
pessoas que
support
nos
us,
ensinam,
motivate
pessoas
us,
que nos
teach
educam,
us,
pessoas que
educate
nos põem
us,
para cima.
that really bring us
Tanto
positive
quanto haverá
things.
quem nos ponha para
And there will
baixo,
be
nos
people
broche,
that
nos
will
apequene, nos
downgrade
humilhe,
us,
nos
that
aproxime da
humiliate
morte.
us, and
Por essas
bring
e por
us
outras, somos
close
uma
to death.
inteligência
And that's
em
why
nome
we
da
are
aproximação daquilo
intelligent.
que nos
We
alegra
need to be
e do
close to
afastamento
something that
daquilo que nos
really makes us
entristece.
happy and really
E se
keep
você
us
me
distant
perguntar,
from
depois
something
de
that makes
tudo
us
isso,
sad. And if you come to me and ask me,
como é que eu posso ter
how
certeza
am I going to
que
be
a vida
sure
está
that
valendo a
the
pena
world
nesse
is worth
momento?
it right
Eu
now?
te diria,
I am going to say,
a vida vale a pena nesse momento,
the life is
quando você
worth
gostaria
this
que
moment,
esse momento
when you
durasse
wish this
tiquinho
moment
mais,
to last a little
pouquinho
bit
mais,
more,
como 5 minutos a mais
like
na ducha,
5 more
5 minutos
minutes
a mais
under
abaixo,
the
debaixo do
shower,
edredom.
5 more
E
minutes
aquele aluno que em
on the
dezembro,
bed,
depois de
and the
ano de
student
aula,
after
chegava para mim e
1
dizia,
year
o
that
senhor vai
would
dar
come
aula
to
para
see,
nós no ano que vem?
you're going to
Senhor,
teach us next
o senhor
year,
vai dar aula para nós no ano que
teacher,
vem? Seria
you're
bacana
going to
se
teach
a
us,
gente der
it
aula
would be
para o senhor
nice
no
to
ano que vem
have
também.
classes with you next
Com quem a
year.
gente precisa falar para o senhor dar
So
aula para nós
who
no
do
ano
we
que
have
vem?
to speak to?
Sintoma de uma vida
So this
que
is a
valeu a
symptom
pena.
of a life
Aquele
that was worth
desejo
it, that
que essa
wish,
vida
that
durasse
desire that the
tiquinho
life
mais.
would last a
Porque tudo
little
que é
bit
bom,
more, because
a gente
everything that is
gostaria
good,
que durasse
we would like to
pouquinho
last
mais.
a little bit more.
Pois muito bem, meus queridos,
So,
muitíssimo obrigado pelo
thank you
carinho,
very
pela
much
atenção,
for your
pela
attention,
cordialidade,
for
pela
your
generosidade.
friendship, for
Eu espero
generosity,
sinceramente
and I
que
really
em encontros
hope
vindouros
that
possamos
in the
estar
near future
juntos,
we're going
se
to be
Deus permitir.
together if
Até a
God
próxima.
allows
Valeu.
us. See you soon. Thank you very much.
Muito obrigado, professor
Right,
Clóvis.
thank
Obrigado
you
não pela
very
palestra, mas
much,
pela
Professor
aula
Clóvis,
que o senhor
not
deu pra
only
gente
for the talk,
nessa
but for
manhã.
the
Já
class
começamos a
given here
segunda
today.
olhando
We
pra nossa
started the
vida
second
com uma
on
perspectiva
the Monday
diferente,
morning,
graças
looking
às
at different
mensagens, às
perspectives,
informações que o senhor
thanks to the
compartilhou com a gente
message and
hoje.
information
E,
you
senhoras
shared
e
with us
senhores,
today. Ladies
desta
and gentlemen,
forma,
in this
nós
way,
vamos
I'd
chegando ao fim
like
do
to,
nosso
we are
evento.
reaching the
Hoje
end of
tivemos
our
conversas importantíssimas
event.
sobre
We had
mudanças,
very interesting
futuro
talks
e a
about the
perspectiva
future,
da
about
Trimble
changes,
nesses assuntos.
and Timble's
Conversamos
perspectives in
sobre os
these
lançamentos do
topics.
VSafe
We talked
Plus,
about the
a
launches
aplicação
of
de
VSafe, the
inteligência
application of artificial
artificial e análise de
intelligence, and the big
para
data
softwares de gestão de
analysis to
frotas.
fleet management
Pensamos sobre o
software.
futuro do
We
transporte
think
e
about
seus
the future of the
impactos na
transport and the
sociedade
impact
com
on
James
society
Langley.
with James
Já
Langley.
a
Elwin
McLachlan falou
McLachlan
sobre
talked
como a
about
disponibilidade
how the
de
availability
informações
of information
nos induz a
induces
mudanças
us
como um
to
todo.
change as a
Também
whole.
entendemos
We
a
also
importância
understood
de
the
pensar como
importance of
futurista,
thinking like a
como Peter
futurist, like
e ter
Peter
essa
Croston, and
mentalidade
to have this
é olhar para
mentality
mudanças
to
e estar
look at the
preparado
changes and be
enquanto
prepared
pessoas,
as people, as
assunto
person,
abordado
as an
pelo
individual. The
professor
subject
Clóvis de Barros Filho,
talked
que
about
acaba de encerrar
for
sua
Clóvis de
apresentação.
Barros that has just
O
ended
futuro que
his
a Trimble
presentation. The future
deseja
Trimble
criar
wants to create
onde
is
as
where
estradas
the
são mais
roads are
seguras. Esse é
safer.
o futuro.
This is the
Mais
future.
seguras,
Safer
onde os
roads
motoristas
where
possam
drivers
voltar para
can
suas
return
casas
home
e acidentes
and
possam
accidents
ser
can be prevented
evitados todos os
every
dias.
day.
Esse futuro
The
pode ser
future can be
alcançado com a
achieved with
tecnologia
the
do
VSafe
VSafe
technology.
Plus. E agora,
And
a gente,
then,
antes de encerrar,
now,
a
before
gente vai
closing,
conferir o
we
vídeo
are
desse novo
double-check the
equipamento. Solta aí.
video of this new equipment.
O que é uma obra-prima?
What is a
É a mais
masterpiece?
bela obra de um
At
artista,
the best
de uma época,
masterpiece
de
of
um
an
gênero.
artist.
Uma obra-prima tem a capacidade
A
de marcar uma
masterpiece is
geração,
able to mark a
mudar rumos,
generation,
ditar futuros.
place, to bring
Uma história que eu
future.
quero te contar.
Story
tem a
that I
ver
want
com
to
tudo
share
isso.
with you that has to do with this.
Havia dois motoristas,
There were two
um no
drivers,
caminhão
one
e
in a
outro num
truck,
carro,
the other in a
cada qual em
car,
seu caminho,
each one
um
in
de
their
cá,
own way
outro de
home,
lá,
one
mas
in each
ambos com o mesmo
side,
destino,
but going
suas
to the same
famílias.
direction,
No
their
carro, o
families.
motorista
In the
pensava em
car,
seus
the
filhos,
driver thought about
e
his
no
kids.
caminhão, o
And the
motorista
truck,
sonhava com suas
the
filhas.
driver
Um sonho
dreamed
que se
with his
continuasse
kids.
acabaria em
A dream that
pesadelo,
if it continued would
até que
end
de
in a
um instante
nightmare.
para o outro,
Then all
o
of a
VSafe
sudden,
Plus da Trimble
VSafe
o
Plus,
acordou
Trimble,
e salvou os
woke up
caminhos e
and
destinios de todos.
saved the destinations
Isso é um
with their
final
ways.
feliz que se repete repete em todas as estradas do planeta, através de empresas que usam Trimble e transformam o modo como o mundo funciona. Para as pessoas que valorizam a vida, unimos nossas melhores soluções globais, criamos o V-Safe Plus, a obra-prima da Trimble, para um transporte mais seguro. Uma tecnologia exclusiva, projetada para conectar os mundos físico e virtual, protegendo vidas dentro e fora das pistas. Quem entende de arte reconhece uma obra-prima. Assim como quem entende de logística, escolhe a Trimble e garante o final feliz em todas as viagens. Trimble, transformando o modo como o mundo trabalha.
O
V-Safe Plus came to protect lives and make safer traffic. And if you're interested in ensuring in pre-sales, we're going to put the QR code here on the main page, here on the screen. So you can take a picture of the QR code to have access to the pre-sales. Trimble is thankful for all who followed us this morning and enabled us to share the incoming with you. Thank you to the speakers, to Clovis Barros Filho, Peter Paxton, James Langley, Erwin, and keep following our protocols against coronavirus. Follow Trimble Transportation on our social media. And a very important message here for you who are interested in safety and logistics. Okay, take notes. On the 17th and 18th of November, we have the 3rd National Forum for Road Safety event at Trimble and raising a proposal. Okay, it's in a month's time. I will stay here. I'm leaving you with the agreement on our next meeting next month. Follow Trimble on the social medias, like it, and we will see you next time. Bye.
Finding life along the way, melodies we haven't played. No, I don't want no rest. Echoing around these walls, fighting to create a song. I don't wanna miss a beat. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on